All right, as we wait for everyone to come on in, I just want to talk about a couple things real quick. Primarily, what we've got going on, experiments coming up, stuff like that. Also, questions and answers. I'll try to get to as many as I possibly can. Also, want to say thanks, everybody. That's one of the main things I want to say during this live chat is thanks so much for being a part of our beekeeping lives. This year has been challenging, but it's also been good in many different ways. And we've had so many people who have encouraged us verbally, sending us letters, YouTube messages, Facebook messages, emails, people I've run into at different places. Um, it's the outpouring of support is just amazing. And thanks so much. It really, really makes a difference and encourages us to keep making the videos. Also, thanks to everyone who has donated. A lot of people have, and a lot of people I don't even know because some people have gone through like our Audible link or done other things that have helped support our channel. Thank you so much. And there's a lot of people who have written, and I haven't gotten back to everybody. We're just so busy. But I have, if you've written me a letter to our PO box, I have read it. I've seen most of our emails and messages. There's hundreds and hundreds, and I can't get to all of them, but it doesn't mean that I don't appreciate them. Hey, it's good to see you guys. Hey, tomorrow's video is going to be pretty cool. I really think that it's going to be a video that could help a lot of people out. If you have carpentry skills, it is going to be really easy to build and maybe a big game changer in your beekeeping. Um, well, everything. I mean, basically. I'm gonna just wait for that one for tomorrow. I'm tripping all over myself today. We've got experiments coming up, all kinds of different things. And by the way, since we've gotten over 20,000 subscribers, I'm going to be sending somebody a jar of our honey and also a jar of Kiave white honey from Hawaii. So that'll be coming up in a video. We'll be shipping that off to somebody else. And it is really, really good and expensive, very expensive. It comes from my buddy in Hawaii. You can get it at goodjobbees.com. It is there's a lot of honeys out there, but this one is very, very unique. It's naturally creamy and all that kind of stuff. Mm-mm-mm. The vanilla bean is especially good. Good to hear that the honey flow's going strong there in South Dakota. Hey, Keeper O one, you finally made it on. Yeah, I brought out the nice shirt, and part of the reason I did that is I couldn't find one of my regular shirts. I think they're all need to be washed. It's been pretty hot, and so I wear two or three white shirts in a day, and they get so smoky smelling. So I grabbed this white shirt instead, and also I've been doing some Zoom meetings for some bee clubs. I'd like to say thanks to the Neoba folks down there in Oklahoma. That was a wonderful live chat. You all have some great beekeepers. Also, going to be talking to some beekeepers in North Carolina at the Catawba, I think it is, Beekeepers Association. And that's going to be a lot of fun too. So, look forward to that. If you want your bee club to have me on, then I am available to do that sometimes. I mean, send me an email or something like that. Let's see. Okay, so Kiave. Kiave is spelled Kiawe. You can see it right there, just backwards. Kiave. It does not look like it's supposed to, but in Hawaii, most everything is a vowel. And it's really crazy because you drive from one road to the next. And it seemed like the only difference was they added two more vowels. They add another U and another A or something like that. It's really a really interesting experience. Hey, awesome to hear that you had some queens going good for you. We've had several people say that they've tried queens for the first time or actually had success for the first time using the method that we're doing. And I didn't invent all of these things. There's very few things that's on YouTube that actually has been genuinely invented by one person. There's so many different contributors over the years. One of the things that I'm doing right now is I'm putting our queens in the starter box and then finisher. I'm going to try to have a video on that soon for those of you who are wanting to raise more queens quicker. It's really not too terribly hard. Can you shut the door? Let's see. Yeah, Chiave is in the mesquite family. Absolutely. So, Thai beekeeping, Tropolapsis mites, are you concerned about them migrating to the United States? I am. I don't know necessarily how big of an impact they are going to have on everyone, but they are going to have an impact. I think it's going to be this. I'm not super educated on this, and this is just from the data that I have read. And there's a lot of data that we get that when we actually get to experience it, either is not as big of a deal as we thought, or is a whole lot worse. So hopefully it'll be the former, but I have heard that they don't handle brood breaks very well because they aren't as long lived as Varroa. And so a brood break really is hard on them. So, in areas where you don't experience much of a brood break or no brood break, let's say Hawaii, southern Florida, Texas, parts of California, those most southern states, kind of like with the Africanized bees, um, really do well in certain areas and other areas they don't. I would think Tropolapsis would have a very difficult time setting up a consistent shop up in northern states. But then with the commercial beekeeping industry, the commercial guys coming in and out, there's going to be a constant they'll be constantly brought from the warmer states on. And the last thing our bees need is another pest, but it might just be a matter of time till we have that as well. Hopefully not. Hopefully the brood breaks will be something that really does a lot of damage to them. And I really feel like even without them, a brood break is a very significant tool that is underutilized in beekeeping. The video that I am doing tomorrow is talking about brood breaks, wiping out varroa, requeening colonies, and doing it in a very easy and simplified manner that anybody can do. Let's see. Just yeah, so the tropolapsis might again the hopefully the brood break will be significant. I hope we don't get them. That's the last thing that we need right now. I think most of us are still not fully understanding the significance of the viruses that the varroa mites are introducing to our bees. I'm trying to help with that as much as I can. I still have a lot to learn. One of the researchers, I believe it was Cameron Jack, just had it was either a Zoom meeting or something like that, where he was talking about oxalic acid vapor and how it is perceived of having a higher effective rate than what it really does. And how he mentioned that the EPA probably should allow beekeepers to use a higher dose of oxalic acid than what we are currently allowed to use in the United States, which is 1 gram, because it is just not showing to be effective. I have totally found that to be the case. Michael Palmer has totally found that to be the case. Many beekeepers have found that to be the case, and oxalic acid vapor definitely has its place in our arsenal, but we need to understand more about it in order to be able to use it effectively. I feel like a lot of the reasons beekeepers struggle even using oxalic acid vapor is because they don't apply it enough, they don't apply it at the right times, or maybe like Cameron Jack said, might not be used in a strong enough dose. I have used it really hard on some experiments, high dosages, consistent dosages, and still not gotten the mite drop that I was told that I would get. Terry, hi, Cayman. I want to let you know that the nukes I purchased from you are doing terrific. Well, Terry, I'm really glad to hear that. And thanks so much for trying our nukes out for the first time this year. And um, just keep me posted and all that kind of stuff. And I hope everything continues to go well. Hope our fall flow is really good and really helps give them a nice shot in the arm going into winter. That would be a really big help. It's crazy though. We passed our 6 month rainfall like 4 months into the year, and now we can't buy a drop of rain. It's hilarious. Yeah, the Amish community down in Lawrenceburg and Tennessee, and up in Franklin, Kentucky, they have a really good price, and the equipment isn't like perfect like a piece of furniture, but they still work very good. I've got several hundred pieces of equipment from the Amish. If you are not able to buy bulk prices, buying from the Amish is, as far as I know, the cheapest way to get your equipment. I can't even build my equipment for the price I can get it from the Amish, and most of the time they're using cypress, which is better than the material that I can source around here. Just don't try calling them on the phone. You're probably not going to have any luck with that. All right, this is a question I get a lot. So, hi, Cayman. Why can it one graft an egg instead of a day old larvae? Well, it won't work. That's why. I don't know exactly why that is, but I have tried it. There's been beekeepers who have tried it for over a century. Bees will not accept that. It is really odd, but they will not. Now the NICOT method, or the NICOT, depending on where you're from, you can. It's it takes a lot of work, but you can force the queen to lay into those plastic cups and then transfer them over once they've gone to the larvae stage, and that seems to work very well to people who know the system. To me, I can graft way faster than that system. Um, when is the latest you raise queens? I can raise queens here in September, no problem, and I could probably squeak some in October, depending on the year. But you're starting to really push the season in October, and honestly, we're wanting to focus on taking care of what we have to the fullest of our ability. But September would definitely be a safe bet here in northern Middle Tennessee. Okay, where was that? High Came in the Flow is over in South Carolina. Where should and how long should I feed pollen sub, or when should? So this is a good question, and because there aren't a lot of people that push for this, I'm one of the few people that, since I'm one of the few people that talk about it, I don't really have a whole lot of people to collaborate with on this. So I don't have all of the experience in the world on what the beetles are like in South Carolina. But I know for me right now, I am feeding patties, and I am feeding double deep colonies, a pound and a half at a time. These are packed doubles. They can't move without bumping into a bee. I recommend, especially if you're wanting to make splits, or if your colony does not have a lot of bee bread, starting to feed immediately. Bees, when they have that forward momentum, it's much easier to keep that momentum going. If they come to a screeching halt because they're nutritionally lacking somewhere, trying to feed them and get them to go forward is much more difficult than just to maintain that. Especially if you're wanting to split hives, start feeding now will keep them larger. Keep in mind that you need to control the varroa mites. The more brood that you make, the more mites you produce. If there's mites to get into that brood. So honestly, depends on your forage, but I'm going to be feeding mine pretty much the last week or so. I've been feeding, not very heavily, and I'm going to probably feed till. Oh, I hope I don't end up feeding into September, but it depends on the fall flow. And some years the fall flow is there and awesome, and some years it's not. So just don't feed too much. It's kind of an art form, and you'll be able to gauge, especially the more colonies you do, which ones can handle what, and better to err on the side of too little than too much. That's one that brings me to this right here. One of the experiments that we're going to be doing. I'm going to try to have that completely set up this week. Have 4 colonies. Not a huge experiment, but I have 40 pounds of these 1 pound spirulina algae patties, and they're like a black green. They have all kinds of essential oils, and they have coconut oil and spirulina. I've eaten it before. Chlorella, I've eaten that as well. Water lentils. These greens are very healthy for you, especially as you get older, and they are very high in healthy proteins, lots of trace minerals, macro minerals. There is some research done um, by some bee scientists that show that this possibly the spirulina can help the bees. Well, it doesn't really help. It does help the bees, but what it does is it has some things in it. I think they call it prebiotic fibers that help stimulate the bacteria that's already in the bee's gut and just help them be able to grow to larger populations, which of course, healthy gut bacteria is very important for proper mineral assimilation. So we're going to be throwing these on. Supposedly, there's a lot of wild claims about these things, so we're going to see for ourselves that they actually work. They're a little bit pricey. They're supposed to, be very different than your regular patty. And I have to say, off the what little I've tried so far, there could be some awesome things coming with this. But what we're going to do is take some colonies that are about the same, all brand new queens, young splits, 4.5, 5, 6 frames of bees into each one. Not very strong, but they're going forward. Feed them these patties right here and feed them too much. I'm going to put about 1.5 pounds on those colonies, which is too much. If I was feeding Ultra Bee, that would be really bad. That's going to cause them. They just can't eat it quick enough, and the small hive beetles can lay in it. And all it takes is one small hive beetle, but these are supposed to repulse small hive beetles to a large extent. Even if they just do it to a small extent, that could be a big plus for beekeepers who want to keep their bees healthy in those rough times of the year, and beekeepers who are wanting to help stimulate their bees coming out of winter. A lot of things can ruin your pollen, freezes, frost, no rain, lots of different things, and your bees, you want to take care of them. And this is a more natural alternative. So we'll see how that works. And if the small hive beetles don't go after them, this might be a really nice product for everyone to try. Hey, Sasquatch apiaries. Thanks again, Glenn. Uh, I really appreciate you coming on here so many times and helping us out. A lot of these experiments that we're just starting to get into, we have a lot more planned down the road, are made possible by people like Glenn, helping us out so much and be able to take that extra time to focus on those things. And I think more and more we're going to be able to do that. I'm really hoping next year we have 40 to 50. And that's where all that goes. And, if you guys go into Audible and go through our link, that helps us out. You don't pay a dime, and it really helps us be able to experiment more. Thanks once again, Glenn. So, Jason C., are you selling any of your queens and do you ship? Yes, we do ship. And right now, we're trying to raise a couple hundred for ourselves. I am selling a couple here and there, but it's just as I find excess. And I have a waiting list longer than my arm, which is not that long, but it's longer than that. Yeah, these are healthy bee patties. And, again, we'll see how well they do. I really think that feeding pollen supplement, especially in certain areas. I mean, some of us live in areas that have great pollen flows. Some of us, it's hit and miss. I think that's most of us. And then some of us live in really rough areas. There's places in California and places in the deep south where you just have dearths for like 3 months at a time or more. Some of them even longer than that. And it's okay, if you have a big colony. That's one thing that I'm seeing in my big double deeps, my honey production size colonies. They have 4, 5 frames worth of bee bread, so they're going to be able to do really well. Supplementing with a little bit of this stuff helps them do even better, and just be able to save a little bit of that good stuff just in case the fall flow is not very good. But what about the colonies that we're splitting right now? They don't have that. We do give them a little bit, but 2 queens laying is going to require more protein. What about the late swarms that we caught? What if you bought bees late from somebody? There's a lot of variables that can cause you to need protein. And if your bees start running out of protein and fats, they're going to cannibalize the brood and they're going to go backwards. And at a certain point, it's just too hard to fix them. All right. Well, thanks again, Glenn, very much. It means a lot to Laurel and I. Let's see. Now, someone asked earlier about our raising queens and stuff like that. In tomorrow's video, we're going to be addressing that a little bit, but it's a different technique. I don't want to get into it too much. I really see us utilizing these a lot this year. After 17 years of beekeeping, one thing I have learned is to play it safe. You stick your toe into the water and feel how cold it is. Feel that temperature because there's been a lot of products over the years or things that I've tried that I look back and or I look in my dad's barn or my shed or something. I'm like, well, there's that equipment that I blew 500, 1200, even more money on, and I don't even use it anymore. So a lot of times I'll try things out like I did last year and just like a couple. And then if I really like it, then go from there. Patience is a virtue, and it's very, very hard to be patient sometimes, especially with bees. What is your technique to requeen a very large colony? So there are multiple ways that you can do this. Tomorrow's video addresses that in one of the hives. We're getting to two different hives with four different queens. Woohoo! And I mean, if I'm not trying to split the colony, then what I would prefer to do, if the queen's not too bad, I'm going to make a split with her, the original queen, and then I'm going to drop a queen cell into the hive that I pulled the queen out of. Now you can make a split like a mating nuke and put the cell in there. If the queen comes back, then requeen, or you can purchase a queen and then I would still prefer to make a split. I just don't like the idea of killing a queen and then the other queen not being accepted, and all of a sudden now we're queenless. Tomorrow we're going to be addressing that into detail. Um, but I think requeening is something that needs to be done more often than some people realize. Poor queens can just ruin everything. And some bees are really good about superseding their queens, and some are not. I don't fully understand why that is. I have a couple going through super procedures right now. This is a very common time for us in North Middle Tennessee to start seeing super procedures between about the 1st of June and the mid part of July. I think we get most of our super procedures. And this is, I think, a good time to do it because there's still a lot of nutrition coming from um, the spring flow. There's plenty of drones out there. The queen has probably wore herself out building up for that flow, especially if she's an older queen. But I have several colonies this year that I requeened because they just couldn't get a pack double for nothing. And you look at these other colonies that were smaller than them coming out of the winter that surpasses them, and you're just like, okay, it's a queen problem. You go in there, take the queen out, drop a cell, or put a mated queen in there, and all of a sudden, this like fixes the problem. Yeah, Tim, I haven't stuck my toe inside the hive entrance. I've made a thousand bee mistakes, if not more. And I think a lot of people think, oh man, Cayman's got some things figured out. You know why Cayman's got things figured out is because he's made probably more mistakes than anybody when it comes to beekeeping. That's why. Yeah, that's just the truth of it. Eventually, you start running out of things to make mistakes on. At least that's my theory. Hey Marta, I am going to be doing a video on a starter finisher soon. Tomorrow's video is on something else, but I think it is just as important. But I will be showing the finisher before too long. I've got about 100 queen cells in various stages going right now, and then I don't know how many mating nukes we've got going, but I'm really going to try to raise just for ourselves this year over the whole year 300 queens. Going to try to requeen a lot of different things. I'm just trying to get everything really uniform, and just next year I'm going to really attempt to quit my job and be going full time as a beekeeper, and that's going to require everything to be at its best for that to be possible. This year has been good, all things considered. The honey flow, if it would have been existent like it normally is, it would have been a fantastic year. But I think right now we're probably looking between all of our bee yards 30 to 40 pound average on production colonies, which is very, very low. I'd say 30 probably is realistic. Hey, Glenn, man, uh, I would have answered your question anyways, but thank you. How is the restoration of the old honey spinner slash extractor coming? Will you be showing us that progress? Thanks for saving a piece of beekeeping history. Well, I haven't started on that, and that's probably going to end up being a winter job just because I don't have any time for it right now. But I'm really wanting to, um, or if we do, when we do that, or whatever we end up doing, I'll be letting you all know about that for sure. I I'm not really familiar with that kind of stuff. I know of beekeepers who have done that, but I just one more thing to learn. So the advice that I give right now would might be the wrong advice, but I'm hoping to talk to some people who have done it before. And that's where this YouTube thing has really been handy for me is I've got to meet a lot of beekeepers who have done certain things that I never have, and it's a either one, let me know of what I don't want to do, or let me know a couple tips that I might have never run into before. So that's awesome. But yeah, it's really fun to watch that extractor go. I don't know the exact age. I'm hoping to get a better idea from Kelly's. There, every beekeeping supply is so hard to get in contact with. I had a product that I purchased back in late February, and I just got the product resolved last week. Every and I think some of it's the coronavirus thing, but I think there's more to it than that for sure. That being said, I've had pretty good results getting an email through to the people at Kelly's and getting my product within usually 2 weeks or so. I haven't now. I ordered most of my stuff back in February, which just keep in mind for next year. If you need stuff and you aren't, try to order it before the rush. Because even without the whole shutdown stuff going on, it always next year they're not going to have a good excuse for why it's hard to get your stuff. But it'll still happen to a degree, I'm sure. Let's see. Hey, Saint Germain. Yeah, I don't. Maybe you could send me some pictures on, through the email that you order the nucleus colonies from on the one that's got a spotty brood pattern, and I could see if if it is actually a queen problem or what. Um, that's something that it can be really hard to address those situations without being able to visually see the brood. So if you can maybe get a shot or some or two and send that to me at the business email, then that could help quite a bit on addressing the issue. Yeah, David J. Little Esmond said, "I have not failed. I just found 1,000 ways it will not work." Very, very true. Yeah, lumber is pretty expensive, and plus, time is it just takes so much time to build stuff. Let's see here. I know I got some more time, but just all right. So as far as our starter finisher, basically what we do is we're taking a queen that is a really nice one because we need lots of young nurse bees being produced. We have her below in a single managed brood chamber. We're putting pollen patties. We're making sure there's plenty of natural bee bread down in there. We're getting a trickle of pollen coming in, but it's not enough to sustain a colony's large size. So we're doing everything that we can. We're taking the frames of larvae, shaking them down with the queen, shaking the bees off and taking the exposed larvae and bringing them up above the excluder. And we're putting drawn combs, which we have extras, down below so that queen has plenty of room to lay. Also, we want the larvae and eggs up above because they have to be hand fed by the nurse bees. So obviously, those nurse bees are going to come up into that second story, and that's where we can place our already started queen cells. In between that, some brood. We can also bring some frames of capped brood from other colonies, bring them in to facilitate a unnaturally strong colony. The stronger, the better. The more nurse bees, the better. So you can take a little colony like the five frame nuke system or another system, get your cells started. 24 hours later, you take them over into that finisher. And as long as you have that queen excluder down there, the queen stays below. The bees will, as long as they're started, the bees will raise them. And as long as there's a strong bee population, you're giving them feed or there's a good pollen and nectar flow, they will draw them out very good. I'll have to show you in a video sometime. but it's not too complicated of a system. Hey, G White, thanks so much for coming on, and thank you um, for the kind words. I really appreciate you. I really feel like there's a lot of information that I've got to experiment with and try out, and it's going to help me learn. And I'm going to be sharing that with you guys as I learn things. And I think that's one of the things with beekeeping that's been the most frustrating for me over the years is there's so many products. There's things to this day that I'm looking at purchasing, and I can't find anybody who's tried them. No, or nobody that has any good experience or a decent opinion. And no offense, but if you've only been beekeeping for a year or two, or only have one or two, five hives, then while that is nice to hear your opinion, I want to hear someone who's tried it for years. I want to hear it from somebody who can keep their bees successfully and has a lot of experience, so they can, I think, get a better feel on the product quicker. It's not that haven't learned a lot from beekeepers that have fewer bees than me. Quite to the contrary. Some of my favorite beekeepers are very successful running 20, 50, 100 hives, and they stay at that number. They make their own splits, make their own queens, make a few $1,000s a year selling honey and bees. And I have a lot of respect for those guys. But it's really hard to find people like that. And this YouTube channel has opened me up to so many of them where I can get good information on beekeeping products. And I'm hoping with this channel, we can kind of give you all a better idea of what you might be purchasing before you do it. Because I know I've wasted a ton of money over the years. And a lot of it was just because you couldn't find any good information on it. And the people who are selling the product, of course, are going to tell you it's awesome. Like a lot of these supplements for bees, they'll tell you it'll make your bees produce an extra 200 gallons of honey or something like that. Hi, Cayman. Do you have any idea on why a hive will pre-swarm? I had a colony fly out, cluster for 10 minutes, and fly back to the colony, then swarm 2 days later. This is typically due to the queen not being ready to leave with the colony. Sometimes they're over anxious to swarm, and the queen is still in their lane. Also, sometimes she's just hasn't lost enough weight, or maybe she gets stuck in there somewhere. You might have a feeder system or something, and she's running around, gets up in the feeder or something, and then gets stuck in there for a little bit. There could be several reasons why, but a lot of times, if you see bees on the ground, it's because the queen still hasn't lost enough weight, and they chase her around the hive, and she can lose a significant amount of her body weight over several days of them harassing her basically and causing her to not be able to lay and drop weight. But sometimes that doesn't get balanced out right, and they're too anxious. They leave and like, "Ooh, all right, let's go," and it's like, oh yeah, we gotta wait for that fat queen to lose a few more pounds. So, hey John, you're very welcome for doing the Zoom Neoba chat. I really enjoyed that. That was my first time doing a presentation like that. Of course, I've done these live chats, but it was different having more of a um, set amount of information in a certain amount of time that you all wanted presented, and also be able to show slides at the same time, which was, I think, helpful in getting across to you all what I wanted to. And hopefully it went pretty well. This was my first one. I thought it wasn't too bad. And I'm doing one Monday with the Catawba beekeeper. So um, I think this whole shutdown has actually helped, I think, us expand into newer things. So I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina area. I was wanting to know outside of clover, what else are the bees foraging this time of the year? So I don't know exactly what's in North Carolina necessarily, but it's very similar. It's more similar than it's not to North Middle Tennessee. We have very similar flora and fauna. There are a few odds and ends. Sourwood will probably start, but in most areas like mine, there's just a few scattered here and there. There's a lot of variables with weather. We've been having some cooler weather, which this time of the year is actually good. The clovers and certain things do better when we're not getting into the 90s and everything's drying out significantly. But mainly there's plantain um, producing pollen. There's maybe some sourwood for you, clover. There's a couple odds and ends that go here and there, some vines. But as far as anything significant to load up your supers, we're I'm done here. I mean, most places are in this part of the area, but there's variables, definitely variables. So, Travis B, thanks for coming on and supporting our channel. What are your thoughts on buying queens specifically bred and purely for mite resistance, such as Purdue ankle biters? Do you think these breeding programs will really mitigate mite issues? And I think that the answer is both yes and no. So I've got some experience with these, not to a large extent, and that's where again I want to when we're doing that experimental yard, which thanks for donating because that's where that money is going to be going. We are going to be trying out stuff like ankle biters and alternative methods of eliminating mites. I think the reality of it is that they can help probably, but to what extent and what else can we do naturally, like brood breaks, to facilitate their already maybe natural tendency of being aggressive towards grooming and even possibly biting the mites. And with that brood break, is that going to drop us back? What is it going to take to be as natural as possible, but still get the thriving colony that the bees really should be? Most of us, weren't keeping bees prior to Varroa, but it was a totally different world. Totally different world. And when you eliminate those mites and you have a young queen and you're not having other things plaguing your bees, good nutrition, they just look totally different than when they're starting to get chipped away by those things. But I think there's some merit, but I don't know to what extent. I know some beekeepers who tried them out in the first year, like, oh, yeah, these are the best queens. They came out of winter good. And then the next year, they were having a lot of virus issues and mite related issues. So, mites are such a big problem. It's going to take a lot, but I do think there's merit. And we definitely can't throw in the towel and just say, all right, well, we're done with breeding for better bees. We definitely need to do that. But I personally no longer believe in an immune bee. Plus, we might have tropolapsis and who knows what else come along. Hey, Jeff Upton, thanks for coming on again. Thanks. You come on a bunch, and we really appreciate you helping us out. You need to let me know what your honey looks like. You can. I don't know if you're on Facebook, Jeff. But you can send me a picture of your honey pole. I want to see if it looks like mine. Um, Thanks for the comment on the videos. I feel like we're getting better, especially next year. I think I'm going to be able to eliminate my job. We're basically eradicating all beekeeping debt this year, which is, it wasn't massive, but we're going to be able to sock some money away still. We're hoping to do a little bit more with the honey flow, but it's agriculture. Last year was a bumper crop. This year was a bummer. So I really think though that next year we're going to be able to do such a better job at videos. Right now, I literally 30 minutes before we started this live chat, I was the smoke all over me, bee suit, doing the video for tomorrow morning, and it's just crazy, crazy, crazy. And I'm really hoping that next year is going to just be a little bit more controlled, and we'll be able to spend a little more time thanking the videos out and be able to relay the message better and give you better shots. Thank you so much, Jeff. Let's see. Yeah, let me know how it goes, JP the B man. So Keeper 01, how is the poly hive working out? So I've got a double deep that was donated from Blue Sky Bee Supply, and they gave me a 7 framer that can be divided in the middle, or maybe as a 6 framer that can be divided in the middle. It's the Apame that's the 7. And so far, very good. I have never experimented with insulated hives till this year. And it's a small test. This is at the top of the list of what I want to experiment with is insulated hives versus your average wooden one. I know a lot of people claim big things. Some people say as much as 25% higher um, honey honey production with colonies that have poly. I've got to see it for myself. But the eye test so far is showing me that they are doing a very good job. Other colonies are bearding heavily. These colonies are not bearding near as much. They seem to take off quicker when I install them into it. Again, that's just with the eye test, but it stands to reason. Everything else that I know of benefits from insulation when it comes to energy, your house. Right now, I've got like 70s model aluminum single pane windows. And on a windy day, you can feel it through the house. Now, sometimes the fresh air is nice, but my dad had those as well, and he changed his whole house to those new fancy ones. It's like a tomb in there, and his energy bill has decreased on both sides, cooling and heating. It stands the reason it's going to be the same for the bees. But obviously, if your bees aren't healthy, it's not going to help that much. But I think there's a lot of potential there when you learn a lot more. Have a frame with plastic foundation with 5 queen cells on it due to hatch Wednesday. Any way to rescue the extra queens? Thanks for all the videos. Learn something new every time. Well, Carla, thank you so much. And there are ways that you can rescue a certain degree of them. So it really depends on where they place them. I'll try to do a video on this the next time I come across them. If they have them, sometimes they will make a queen cup like off of the comb, and sometimes they'll actually build the cell down into the comb. Those are extremely hard to cut out. If you have a worker cell, they'll float the larvae up. What they'll do is they'll just keep putting royal jelly up underneath it, and they'll float the larvae up to the end of that worker cell. It's royal jelly, and it'll become a queen, and then they bring the queen cell off of that. Those are extremely hard to cut out, even with wax foundation. Now, a lot of times you'll have your flat comb, your worker comb, and then they'll build a supersedure, well, a queen cup off of that can be used for supersedure or swarming or whatever. And if it's hanging off like that, it's pretty easy to cut back around it and cut it off. You just have to be really careful. But you can totally do that. You also, if they're on multiple frames, if you have multiple ones, you can make multiple splits like that. But if you can even make a 1 frame split and pull it over into another box, but it's going to have a shake or two of bees in there with it to ensure you have enough bees to keep all of that brood and those cells warm. That's the number one problem people have making splits, is just not providing enough bee coverage, because all those old forager bees are flying back. Okay, where are we? Hey, Saint Germain, thanks so much for helping us with our experimental yard. It was really good. Or beer, whatever Laurel lets you have. I think it's going to be the experimental yard. She says I'm too crazy and stupid without the alcohol. And that is a Laurel quote right there for you. It's kind of hurtful, actually, but darn if it's not the truth sometimes. Thanks again, Saint Germain. We'll talk to you later. And again, send me a picture of that hive and let me know. So, who has the best price on polyhives? I'm not sure. Again, mine came from Blue Sky Bee Supply, but there is a company that's supposed to be American made that makes them as well. The ones I have come from Finland. They have 8 times more insulative value than a 3/4 inch wood box. And you can hybridize the system. They're made to where you can put wood supers on top of them. So you could technically have an insulated hive, for just the overwintering and for the brood area. And then you could have the honey supers as your normal wooden boxes. That's really nice that you can do both. Lane worker is killing me. I have shaken them and the problem persists. So that is a question I already got today from somebody, and I get that one a lot. Lane workers, this is again why it is so important to have insurance colonies or have extras. These things happen. I think I've had 2 lane worker situations this year. Um, I just didn't get to the colonies fast enough in that yard. I knew something was up, but I just didn't have the time. The biggest frustration for me is when they start raising all those drones down in there, and then they widen up your beautiful worker combs into a bunch of drone combs. You can still use those, but you're going to end up with a lot of drones, and that facilitates more mite production. It takes a lot of resources from your worker bees. But the best thing, in my opinion, to do with a lane worker colony is just shake it out and combine it, and put the combs on something else or freeze them, feed them out, whatever. You can buy a mated queen for them. It is very high risk. You can fix them, but typically I find what it takes to fix a lane worker hive, you could have just made a brand new split anyways that was balanced with young bees, and it would have been so much easier, much less risk, and just a crazy significant drop in the risk factor. Hey, Rich. Thanks so much for coming on and supporting our channel. Feel free to leave a question. Yeah, Apiguard cannot be used with the honey supers on unless you want your honey to taste like um, mouthwash, because thymol is used in a lot of mouthwash and it smells very strong. There's actually a certain degree of thyme oil in this, which is supposed to have somewhat of a similar effect. Some people are saying that this can help reduce the mite loads. We'll just see right now if it can keep the small hive beetles at bay. Then we'll go from there. Well, well, Keeper oh 01. I didn't mean to buy the last one. Actually, I didn't even buy it. It technically wasn't my fault. Uh, oh my goodness, that's funny. I'll have to post that to my Facebook. By the way, you guys, for those of you who do Facebook, you can follow me on there on Facebook, and I post a lot of things that I can't on YouTube, pictures, other different things like that. Sometimes I'll come across a deal, let you know about what's fixing to come up, let you know about live chats. There's a lot of things you can stay informed. I don't use Facebook for much except beekeeping, um, but there's a lot of beekeeping stuff on Facebook. Just watch out. There's some crazy stuff too. So walk away splits in Minnesota. I don't know what their season's like. You probably could do it, but it needs to come back with a mated queen. I personally have not had very good results with walk away splits every time that I've done them. Queen cells work, and I know you have to raise your own queen cells, but they just work at such a better rate for me, and I think you get a better queen. Yeah, that was the company in Ohio, Superior Bee, that also makes the polystyrene as well. I have not tried theirs yet. The ones I got from Blue Sky were very nice, and you wouldn't think that stuff was so strong. When queen rearing, what do you do with all the extra queen cells once all of your nukes have queen cells? So we always end up with some extras, and I try to make some extra nukes. Occasionally, I'll give them to some of my buddies, and there's some beekeepers here locally that I can call and say, "Hey, you want a handful of queen cells or something like that?" I try to use them, but there's sometimes that due to the time and how busy we are, we some of them go to waste, and it's a shame. But honestly, they wouldn't even exist without us doing what we're doing, and some of them, no matter what we do, just aren't good queens cells. I mean, I don't get 100% takes on anything. There's a few that always end up being runty. It might not be every time you graft, but over the year you're going to get some runts. And the last thing I want to do is take all that time, put a runty queen cell in there. But there's always a certain degree of loss. Hey, Gino, thanks for coming on again. Oh, excuse me. Feel free to ask a question, and thanks again for supporting our channel. Yeah, and here, even here in Tennessee, I just feel like one of the risks with walkaways is, one, if it doesn't work out, your bees are very old. What you have left, old bees are no good for trying to requeen them a second time. It's harder to get them to to introduce a mated queen into them. Um, I just, even with dropping a cell in, I'm still not coming back for a lot of times around 16 days. So there's a gap there, and then she'll start laying, and she doesn't just start laying full throttle. Usually she starts pretty slow, and then after she's laid I don't know, depends on the queen, 1,000 eggs or so, and a lot depends on the population of nurse bees she has as well. But especially once they raise their first round of brood successfully, then they do really good. They really start going to the races, but they've got to have plenty of nutrition to do that. Yeah, this is a healthy bee patty. I've got 40 pounds of them to try, and I think it's going to be a pretty interesting test because I feel like most people don't feed pollen patties, because they don't want to risk small hive beetles sliming out their hive. And there is some misinformation on that. I know a lot of beekeepers in Tennessee who are going around telling beekeepers if you feed pollen patties to your hive, you're going to kill it because the beetles will slime it out in 3 or 4 days. And you can't do that here. Well, we do a lot of impossible stuff in this bee yard, let me tell you, and our others as well. Right now, as far as the bees population that we have, we're a little over 200. We sold a lot off, and that's partially due to the poor honey flow. But we're splitting like mad. I don't know if we're going to get back to 300. I would really like to do that. But at the same time, I'm going to be going back to work eventually, and that's going to really put a damper on productivity this year. But 200 is definitely the minimum goal, and hopefully next year we'll have a great honey flow. It was just it's a bummer when you have a really below average year. Our bees look healthy, thank goodness. Our queens are coming back with really high levels of percentage. Going to 20,000 subscribers in a year and a half has just been very exciting and a blessing. It's been a lot of work too, but it has been a very wonderful experience. And but really the thing that everyone thinks of when it comes to bees is honey production, making honey. And this is like the first year that the channel's pretty large, I think, and all this stuff. And a lot of people are asking questions, and I didn't even have like two full supers at my house. I have a lot of like I'm pulling 4 frames from this colony, 3 frames from this colony, that kind of stuff. Now I'm gonna get to pulling from my best honey yard, and it looks better, thank goodness. And we're gonna get some videos. But a lot of times when I go over there, because we're taking the kids with us, it's hard to do videos because we got the kids, Laurel's over there. We're trying to really kick butt and take names and get it done. And there's a lot of times I go by myself. So that's why most of the videos you see them here at the house. Plus, it's easier for me to control things that are more time sensitive if I don't have to drive. But we're going to try to get more videos coming up outside of my home bee yard. And so you all can see kind of what I'm doing at the out yards. I just made my first splits, but haven't relocated the split hives. I decided not to smoke my girls. They are gentle, so I didn't make the nurse bees move off the brood. Well, I have a lot of drift. Um, it depends on how many nurse bees you got in there. And also depends if you have capped brood. If you have capped brood where the bees are coming out as you put it in there, which is a wonderful way to make splits, so just reinforcements coming out every minute. That they could be fine, but it won't hurt to take a peek as long as you don't have virgins running around in there already. Now, if you have virgins, I really hate getting in there. If they need beefed up and you know it, you don't necessarily have to open up the hive. You could just, I guess you could take a quick peek, see where they're at, and you can just shake nurse bees at the entrance if they're on the ground or you have a board running up to them, and the nurse bees will run on in, the forager bees head on home. Have you found multiple queens in a swarm, both old and new queens? The most I think I've ever found was 9. It might have been more than that, but I have found 9 virgin queens in a swarm. It was probably about the size of a basketball. And that wasn't more than likely an after swarm. The colony had swarmed once, took the mated queen with that. Then the virgins come on out, and there could be a dozen or so. I mean, that was just how many I found in there. And I split them up and tried to get as many to come back as possible. And I was able to get several good mated queens. If I'd have just stuck them all in one hive by themselves, there would only been one queen after they got done fighting. It'd be crazy to see that brawl going on. It'd just be insane. It's like the Hunger Games in the bee world. I typically start pulling honey supers about right now. Last year, because our honey flow was so good, we were pulling supers 2 or 3 weeks ago because we just had so much honey capped. We were pulling it off and extracting early, and that was really cool. But most of the time, especially when I'm busy, I'm not pulling honey off until early June. But we really don't want to wait till July. There's not a whole lot coming in, even in even if you only have a couple hives and you have more coming in than us, and in this part of the area, you're not getting a whole lot coming in. We feel like what that there is, the bees should have it anyways. Pull the supers, start splitting if necessary, and more importantly, mite treating as soon as possible. Keep those mites low and get on top of them before they get out of control. Hard to fix it when they get too high. The queen, Curtis, will actually take multiple mating flights. So she'll take a few mating flights and mate with. Some people will say 10 to 15 drones. Some people will say 30 drones. It's hard to know, and I'm sure it varies. That's one of the reasons why our mating nukes are not all in the same location. And we also stagger ours out a little bit so we don't have like 100 queens or 50 queens or whatever all at once going at the same time on a mating flight. You know, you want to make sure there's enough drones to service your queens. I feel like that is the number one problem with commercial queens. Raising quality queen cells is possible, and I feel like some of them don't do that either. But I think a lot of them do raise quality queen cells. But the biggest problem is too many queens mating at the same time and probably not a diverse enough drone population. You end up getting a queen that's not mated well. The bees don't like her production or her pheromones, and she's just not going to last long term. Sometimes they can't help it though. I mean, the weather this spring, our queen rearing percentages back in April and May because of the weather was 50 and 60% of flybacks. Now we're in the 80s and 90s. Hey Gino, now I have Formic Pro and I've used a little bit of it, but not on a large scale. I'm really too scared of Formic. I just heard from a bee scientist who I'm not going to name that he was talking to a fellow up in Canada, and they run like over 10,000 colonies, and they used Formic Pro and said they had really bad. The brood took a big hit with Formic Pro. I have never seen Formic that was in a product that was gentle on the bees. Now, can it work? Yes, but you have to be willing to lose brood, in my opinion, or do it when the bees are broodless. So it off gases so much, and humidity affects it, temperature affects it, colony size, screen bottom boards, solid bottom boards, reducers. All of those things have to be taken into consideration because it is a gas, and they have. I don't believe they figured it out yet, and I'm not sure. Formic acid is such a wild product that has so many variables. I can tell you right now, without some very very careful testing, I am not going to use Formic ever again. All I've had is nothing but bad results with Formic, whether it was Mite Away Quick Strips or Formic Pro. Yeah, oxalic acid, and that's the problem with the treatments that we have. Oxalic acid vapor doesn't kill as much. Again, like I was saying earlier, scientists are finding, and I've already tested this myself. Michael Palmer is saying more and more beekeepers with experience, and even scientists are starting to bring out information that is saying that it is just not killing for as long as we think. There are variables with it as well, and the dosage should probably be upped. That was just released recently, and I have seen that myself. I cannot trust 5 rounds of oxalic acid in 21 days. I've tried it on 40 colonies at once, averaged about 70% kill. That's not good enough. It's not. It means I've still got 30% mite infestation in there. Now, if I come back again and do it later, but you realize how much work that is? 40 colonies, 5 treatments each. And then now, because I only killed 30%, I've got to do it again before too long. Now, as far as how gentle it is on the bees, some people have talked a lot of, showing concern about how rough the oxalic acid is on the bees. I have never seen anything in my hives or even decent research showing that it is rough on bees. I've done it as many as 8 times in about a month on one 8 frame colony, and the only thing I saw were positive results. Am I, do the bees enjoy that? I am sure they don't, but it's better than being eaten on by something. Hey, Curtis, thanks so much. You're welcome for the videos, and we'll keep them coming. Yeah, backyard bees, Apivar and oxalic acid vapor is in my opinion, the best combination on the market if you were wanting results. A lot of people don't like the synthetics in Apivar, and I can understand that. However, it oxidizes quickly. It is not like a lot of the old ones where it builds up in wax and stuff, the amatraz. The oxalic acid vapor helps keep it where the mites aren't building resistance to it or anything like that. And getting two different treatments is always a wise idea. Apigard thymol product works pretty well, but it also is a little temperature sensitive, not as bad as formic. We have to watch it as well. Yeah, Gino. I mean, you do what you want, but I've tried formic on as many as a 50-yard colony, and my goodness, I might as well just let the mites have at them because the results were very similar. And I did it late in the year. I did it in early September, but that's the problem here is I treat in the winter, and then I treat as soon as I pull the honey in June, and we're not getting any safe temperatures to use formic here in June. Very some years we might, but that's very few and far between. And even in September, a lot of times we're in the 90s. Humidity's super high here, very high. So I have had nothing but bad luck with formic acid. Hey Bob, there is several other cheaper vaporizers on the market. One is made by John Oliver. I think it's 175 bucks, so it's a little cheaper than the ProVap 110. There's also a guy in Canada that's making a version that's much cheaper, and they're still fast like the ProVap 110, but they're about a third the price, maybe a little bit cheaper than that. Yeah, Saint Germain. Honestly, I don't think that the oxalic acid bothers them much more than if you just smoked your hive. And it's not that I don't want natural products like formic to work. I totally do. It's one of the reason I tried it. There's a lot of things that I want to work. I want these patties to work. I am rooting for these patties. These things, I want them to make my colonies like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Well, at least strength wise. And then I want them to be able to, not get fed on by the beetles and just throw as many as on there as I want at a time. That would be fantastic. Save me so much time. Hey Calvin, sorry to hear that about your colonies with the formic acid. It's just I hear so many stories, and it's not just guys that have 30 or 40 hives. It's guys that have hundreds. It's guys that have thousands of hives, and some of these guys even have experience with it, but it seems like there's variables, um, just slight little variables. Maybe it's humidity that's causing the issues. Now again, the video that I'm going to be showing you tomorrow is actually going to have some Apivar strips in it, and the combination that I'm doing in the video tomorrow, if you can get to that point, it is going to help save you a lot of work. You're getting the best of so many different worlds all in one shot. And if you're a new beekeeper, you can't get there quite in the first year necessarily with all that I did in this video, but you can work your way up towards it to where you're not having to buy bees, and better yet, you're going to have better bees because they're going to be your own, and you're going to keep those mites very very dead. Brian Barner, I haven't tried HopGuard 3, the newest product. HopGuard 1 was HopGuard 2 was kind of eh, and HopGuard 3, I've already heard some people saying that it's yeah. Well, Laurel's like third time's a charm, right? Well, sometimes, when the first movie's no good, why'd you make a sequel? And it's kind of like Sharknado and all those kind of things. Why'd you even make it in the first place? Not that I've actually sat down and watched the whole thing. I don't have time for that kind of stuff. Hope there's no cult Sharknado fans on here. But I just don't know if it's going to be any good. HopGuard 3 it hasn't been reliable in the past. Most of the times when the companies show you how good the product did in their trials, one, they're the ones showing it. Two, a lot of people have been wrong with trials. And two, and three, it's all goofy there. And three, the a lot of times they'll do things to help boost the stats. I feel like a lot of companies do that. It's marketing, and they'll take a colony that was mostly broodless or completely broodless. And of course, with any treatment, oxalic acid vapor, all of them perform very well when all the mites are exposed. It's when you're heavily brooding, how well are you killing mites during that period of time? And then, of course, how much is it harming the bees? Sometimes the natural products are actually more egregious to the bees than the synthetics are. And that's just because those organic acids, like the hop guard, the hops acid, and the formic acid especially are rough. And oxalic acid can be rough, especially in the dribble form. When it's in the vapor, it's very gentle, but it's also very short lived in the hive. In my opinion, 48 hours. You get about 2 days of good kill max. That's just been from what I've seen and from what I've talked to with people I feel like are more experienced than I am or as much. Um, Now, the oxalic acid in dribble form, you pour that through there, and your bees, if it's in a sugar syrup suspension, the bees can ingest that, and that can cause a lot of gut problems. Um, if it gets into the larvae with the dribble, that can cause damage, but the dribble is more effective for one shot than the oxalic acid vapor, and I feel like it is a good way of killing mites, especially if they're broodless. Oh, this thing just jumped on me. Where am I now? I don't know. This thing just jumped like 50 feet down. Oh, well. Yeah, the mine away quick strips do kill brood. And, I think that's part of the effective mechanism that it has is that it kills mites. And then on top of that, it kills brood, giving you a brood cycle. And as long as, the queen isn't killed, you're fine. Or if it does kill the queen or cause them to supersede her, then as long as she comes back with a queen, then you're fine. But there is a degree of loss, and of course that's if it's not too rough on your bees. Sometimes I've heard of people just having just like 60-70% of their brood nuked, but I think that's in rough conditions. Roll Tide, go Vols. Oh, here we go. Man, I can't wait till football season. And by the way, if you are an SEC fan, you probably need to watch tomorrow's video. If you're not, well, even if you are an SEC fan, you're not going to like it. Roll Tide. Thank you, Laurel. You are awesome. How will you do oxalic acid treatments to the apame and polystyrene hives? Well, you can just hold it instead of like sticking it in the hole in the back of a quarter-inch hole you drilled into the bottom board or a box. You can just with the apame, you have those little hole, those discs. You can just stick it there and just let it jet in. That could work. Some people drill holes into the apame and they put like a um, metal grommet type thing in there. There's several things you can do. I would just hold it up to the entrance. Make sure not to touch anything so you don't melt it. Go Tigers. All right. How to get rid of lane workers? Well, the best way to get rid of lane workers is to combine, shake the bees out and combine the equipment with something else. Some people can take the time to fix it, but again, the resources it takes of giving them brood, giving them nurse bees, putting a queen over there, it is going to result in a low percentage chance of success. And honestly, again, you've pretty much made a split in order to save that colony. So why not combine that back to a different, combine it with another colony, and then make a good, well balanced split. And we have videos on how to do that. But lane workers are something that we just, when we get to lane worker stage, that colony is a loss. That's what we view it as. We don't take any more time. We shake the bees out and throw the equipment on a strong colony and move on. We have found that if in order to not just because we have a lot of bees we got to get to, but you got to focus on your champs and take care of them, and then learn how to make more champs off of your champs. It is normal for the queens to not lay as much in summer. Um, a lot depends on nutrition though, and a lot depends on where you're at. And I say that that's here. Now, some folks are just, we're fixing to hit summer, and their main flow is fixing to start. Our flow is April, May, and maybe the first week of June here. It's very short. It's strong when it's available, but for some people, this is summer's the best time of the year. For us, it's a dearth period. It really doesn't matter what season you call it. If there's pollen and nectar coming in, especially diverse pollens, then your bees are going to want to grow. They are very sensitive towards what is coming into the colony, and it just all depends on what you have available, your local flora and fauna. So I would definitely look into raising some plants to help them out. The button bush is a native one here to the United States that I think I'm going to try planting some, because it produces pollen and nectar, and it's native and not supposed to be like an incredible invasive something or another. So someone's looking for me on Facebook. All you got to do on Facebook to find me is type in Kamon Reynolds, KAMON REYNOLDS, and you can find me on there and follow me. And any crazy shenanigans I have going on, you will be able to see. Has your wife got stung while videoing you? Yeah, I get her stung even when we're not videoing. It doesn't matter what time. But yeah, she gets stung. I don't know how many times she's got stung doing videos, but several. You know, more than that. You got stung twice just on that one. I'd say at least half a dozen a year minimum, and it happens. I think I got stung twice today, and it really depends on where I get stung. I get stung on the arm, and no big deal. Sometimes it gets you right around the joint, and even after all these years, I still swell up around that joint a little bit, gets tight. So you know, it happens. We could wear a bee suit, but heat stroke happens as well. Everyone has different pain tolerances, and um, I'm used to it. I'm not allergic. I'm okay with it. I still wear my bee suit. It all just depends on what's going on. And sometimes I'm careless, and that results in stings. Bee season. That's right, Tim. We've been watching a lot of Looney Tunes lately here with the kids. Yeah, homestead engraving, business, and life. Thanks so much for bringing that up. Hitting the thumbs up on our videos or even here, it really does help. Commenting helps. There's a lot of free ways that you can help support our channel. And of course, watching the videos. So again, how do we treat an oxalic acid treatment on an apame? You can just hold it and blow it in one of the holes. But honestly, you can drill a hole in it. There's a lot of different ways that you can do it. But honestly, it's like a 20 or 30-second treatment. I'm just going to sit there and hold it at the entrance. That's all I'm going to do. It also has a screen bottom board under it, so maybe you can just jet it up from underneath. That's probably an option, but it just depends on your hive setup. Let's see here. If I had the cap blow off a ProVap, absolutely. If it gets plugged up on the end, that cap will blow off and spray oxalic acid all over you. Fun times. Wear eye protection. I'm not one of those guys that gets all safety, safety, safety all the time because it's your life. Do whatever you want. I'm not the safest person in the world as far as always, putting on my orange reflective vest and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, sometimes I really feel like it's necessary. And when you're doing the oxalic acid with the ProVap 110, that is one of those times I take the time to put the eye protection on. Brian, buddy, you made it on. And whoa, thank you so much, Brian. Um, you got any questions on bees? Let me know, pal. All right. And, again, thanks to, guys like Brian and the gals and everyone else that is joined. We are experimenting more and more with. Oh, there went some of the patty because I broke it off. We're experimenting with more and more stuff, and thank you so much. It is very humbling. Well, thank you again. Anyways, you know, um, like I said earlier, the reason that we have so much information to share is because of the thousands of mistakes that we have made over the years. Thankfully, my wife is quite the beekeeper, and between the two of us, we have over 30 years of experience. And most of that is making mistakes. And we make mistakes every year. And we're constantly honing our craft. I don't ever see myself stopping unless I die. Hopefully that won't happen anytime soon, but you never know. I say something wrong during a video and Laurel might take me out. You never know. Um, but seriously, um, Laurel just said, I heard that. Are you spying on me in there with your phone? I can't get away, not even for a minute. But thanks again, Brian. We're going to keep going forward, and you guys hang out, and we're going to take you all with us. And I really feel like as a community, we all have so much more potential. And I'm not just saying the United States beekeepers, just the world as a whole. The better the foundation of our bee clubs, of the individual members, the more that they know, the more we're going to be pushing towards the next thing. And I think we have fallen behind in the last couple decades, partially due to lack of information. I know for me, it was really hard to get a hold of the good stuff. And if we don't have access to the good information, we're going to just keep running around like chickens with their heads cut off, or a bunch of us are going to get out of it because it becomes a money sink. And I've been there before. And one of our goals is to help it to not be a money sink. It is for everybody when you're getting started, but hopefully at some point we can get it to where you can at least break even and keep your bees alive and enjoy your hobby. That's my hope for everyone, is eventually you can make it worth the time and money you put it into it, and maybe even make a little bit off of it some years. ET's bees came in. I'm having problems raising queens. Out of 30 grafts, only about 10 come through. And from there to laying queens, only about 4. How can I get better at this? So typically when you're having success getting them to make queens, so you've got some of the components right. But the only things that are going to cause that high number of grafts to drop down so low is nutrition or quantity of nurse bees. And which pretty much goes hand in hand, because it takes, I think someone said 500 nurse bees of the right age, and they can't be brand new bees. They have to be at that right nurse bee age. And it takes about 500, I think, to produce enough royal jelly for one queen. I don't know how accurate that is, but I do know that if I'm having issues with my acceptance staying high or whatever, it's always bee density or nutrition or both. Take that up. And the starter finisher system with a 5 frame nuke is really not suited for doing 30 and maintaining a ton. Typically, on that, even with the most pack setup and the most nutrition I can pump into them, we're still looking at probably 15, 17, 18 queen cells at the most that actually make it all the way to development. Little colonies like that are really bad about whacking off some of them. And I don't know why. They take all that time. You can get like 18 of them and you're like, "Oh man, these all look just like I want them." And then over the course of the next few days, they'll whack 3 or 4 of them and you're just like, "What's going on here?" And I think if they just don't feel the need for their population, I don't know why exactly. But I do know that if I had that same setup in a packed double deep, like that was a triple deep that I condensed down into a double, that they can handle like 60. So a lot has to do with just bee density, but I would target nutrition and bee density. Obviously, they want to raise queens. Yeah, and when I first started, I was getting like 0 takes, and the next time I got like 3, and then I think a time after that or so, I ended up with like 9 or something like that out of 30 or something like that. I was terrible at first, but everything I had was off of books. And so I could not visually see what the bee density needed to be like. And hopefully our videos will help with that. But it needs to be at an insane level if you want the best. I mean, the bees just can't hardly move around. It's so packed in those things. Hey, welcome, Mr. Jamaica. With people from the Dominican, as well, Jamaica, Europe, Australia, all over the United States. Thanks for coming on tonight, everybody. It's been great. It's really humbling to have so many people from so many different places. EFB, have you had a problem with it this year? How do you treat? We have absolutely had more of a problem this year than we mostly do, and it was during a very wet and cold spell back in April and early May. We just have an unseasonably cold weather. I mean, dropping down and getting frost and 30s and 29s, and these brood patterns were gorgeous. Young queens, even second year queens that were just great, big colonies. These weren't little colonies, they were double deeps. I threw 3 or 4 honey supers on them because typically if I don't get them on, I'm going to lose swarms because they backfill. I threw them on right when I normally do, and that's usually about around the first week of April. And man, we got a cold spell, and it didn't last for a day or two. It lasted for weeks. And rain and rain. The bees couldn't get out and get the nutrition. And the combination of all those things, I would go into there, and like every colony that I had seen no European foul brood before, just had spots of it. Not a ton, but it was showing signs of it. Soon as it finally warmed up and the nutrition started coming back in from nature, it cleared right on up. European foul brood is in every hive. You have it. There's different strains of it. Some are worse than others. I am not one of those people that burns their equipment after it happens. I have never burned European foul brood. I don't ever plan on doing it unless we get some new radical strain of it. I requeen the colony. That's a big significant brood break. If they don't have any nutrition come in, feed them sugar syrup, help clean it out of their system. Some people will even put a little bit of essential oil in there. I don't think that's necessary. Get a good new queen in there, but commercial queens can be bad about that. That's one of the reasons I raise my own queens, but no queen is immune from European foul brood or occasional little bits of chalk. But if we're seeing significant signs that are showing up when all the rest of our colonies don't have it, then it's time for a requeen. Hey, Nancy, thanks so much. You're welcome for the information, and I'm glad our videos are helping. We really want nothing more than for beekeepers to be able to be successful. I really feel like I know too many people that got out of beekeeping because they just struggled for so many years, and it just was financially just a pit. And I have totally been there, and I hope our videos can help you and others be able to keep your beekeeping hobby going. We have such a wonderful country here in the United States. There's other places around the world that are just needing more honeybees and more beekeepers, and we've got to arm ourselves with the power of information in order to be successful. Our honeybees are facing a lot of foreign things, and we've got to be informed to help our bees out whenever we can. Thank you. How do you know when to start grafting? Well, it really depends on the weather more than anything. So a lot of people talk about drones, and that is a very important part of the equation. You have to have some drones, or you're in trouble. You usually wait till you see drones that are in the purple light stage, which is not too far from them emerging from the cell. Now, I had drones back in February. If you all go back to a video, maybe it was late January, it might have been January, and we were popping some of the hives in one of my out yards, and the colony had 3 deep boxes on it, and it was like 2 deep boxes and like 4 or 5 frames covered in bees. It had drones. They had the nutrition in there. They had the population. They're raising drones when we're getting highs in the 30s. So there's a lot of things in beekeeping that you'll read in these books, but the reality of it is they can be pretty elastic if the right conditions are met and the colony's strong and healthy. And when you eliminate those mites, you have a good queen and plenty of nutrition. That's what happens. So technically, if you had decent flying weather, we could make queens in February and March. The problem is there's too many days where the queens can't fly. So typically here, I want to see temperatures where we're getting consistently in the mid 50s or higher, preferably 60s. And that's pushing it. You're not going to get your high rate of returns in that low of temperature, but you will have queens return in that weather. I've had some queens return in some crazy weather, but typically here, April through September is your best time in North Middle Tennessee. Yes, the weather really stunk this spring. It handed me my rear end a few times. Will you get nectar from soybeans? My friend in Memphis says he does, but the soil is very dynamic as well. And I think a lot depends on soil conditions. There are certain varieties that produce nectar and some that don't. I have never seen soybeans that did, but I know too many beekeepers who I respect that say that it does, to say that it doesn't. We don't produce a lot of soybeans around here. I have no practical experience there, but I think there are a lot of variables there, and that's what's so frustrating. That's why we need more experienced beekeepers that get to that point of keeping their bees alive, producing honey, and keep learning, constantly learning. We've got to collaborate. We got to inform ourselves because nobody else is going to do it. The agricultural community does not. The beekeepers are kind of like the redheaded stepchild of agriculture. We don't get a whole lot of love. How long does it take for a virgin to get mated and war eagle? I hope that war eagle eats your queen on its virgin flight. Just kidding. Eagles don't eat them, but tanagers certainly do. Now, as far as a virgin, if you're dropping a virgin, it's going to be a whole lot quicker than a cell. I typically find if the weather's good, a virgin be back mated within 10 days. Not always, but 10 days, virgins are usually back and starting to lay. If you're dropping a cell, you're probably looking at more like 14, 15 days, but there's no reason to rush it, especially if you're unsure on the timing. Give it 20 days. At that point, you either have a queen or you don't, and you can combine the colony back and know that you don't have one. Yeah, Johnny Thompson says bees placed with soybeans of 40% around hives in 2 months will produce 90 pounds. Well, that's really nice. Yeah, I know my buddy in Memphis produces a lot of soybean honey in the summer when my bees are not making a drop of anything. So, sometimes commercial agriculture can be helpful. How far am I from Portland, Tennessee? I don't know, maybe an hour and 20 minutes, hour and 15, something like that. I've been up there. I played some bluegrass in Portland a couple times. I have some unhatched brood I transferred a month ago into a nuke. Why doesn't it emerge? Yeah, there's something weird going on there, T's bees. I don't know what's going on with that. Something's wrong. I have to see it myself, but if it's a 21-day cycle, so if it hasn't emerged yet, then it's not going to. If it's been a month, let's see. Yeah, soybeans is hit and miss. I know some guys like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make honey. I'm putting honey supers on for the soybeans, and their supers sit on their hives dry as a bone. Other guys who are like, oh man, I've got to throw my third super on because and get them to draw some foundation because the soybeans are loading it up. A lot depends on acreage too. I mean, they might produce some nectar, but if you've only got 5 acres, that's not the same as someone who's sitting next to 300 acres of it, especially if it's producing sparsely. Density is so important. There's a guy that has alfalfa up towards Cookeville, Tennessee, but the problem is about right the time that it starts blooming is when they cut it. And so, I'm not interested in putting bees up there because the bees won't be able to benefit from it. And, but planting stuff for your bees can be very helpful. And it's not always about being able to see the results of what you're getting as far as like, oh man, look at all this honey I've packed away. Plant stuff that just helps keep your bees from going backwards. Plant pollen producing plants like button bushes. They produce nectar and pollen. Vitex. There's certain types of crepe myrtles. There's certain types of sunflowers, even though most of the times the pollen is pretty inferior. But you can plant things, especially if you're just wanting 3 to 5 hives. You can really help your bees out Focus on that time of the year where your bees don't have as much coming in. And it's not about maybe adding surplus to the colony or adding weight. It's just helping to keep them moving forward. Nothing beats the real thing. So Justin Mitchell asked, "Where are the cats?" And they are no longer in existence. Unfortunately, we live in an area that has a lot of stray dogs, and we've got to do something about that. But we've had dogs come over and eliminate some of our cats multiple times, and also the road is not too far away, so we are catless, and that's unfortunate, but that's just the reality of it. So Ted wants me to say fixin' for him. Well, I'm not going to do that. Hey there, Cayman. Great to listen to a live chat again. Curious, have you ever tried Damari's method of swarm prevention? I have not tried it. I kind of have my own system that I'm not saying it's like I designed it myself, but it works very good for me. And that's just building the bees up to a high level. It's very similar to what Ian does, just a little bit different. Cutting the bees back right before the honey flow gets going and try to get more bees, but at the same time, I would rather get a slightly smaller honey crop because I cut them before the honey flow than to have them swarm on me. And especially when you're managing hundreds of colonies, it's not about always getting that biggest honey crop you can per hive. It's about keeping them in the boxes and also keeping it manageable time wise. But totally, totally like cutting them back. But I need to read more about that method. I really would like to try it at some point. Maybe I can do that for a video. Yeah, Russell Koopman. I've never seen a honeybee on a soybean either, but what do I know? No, Stan, I have not had time to study on the spot queen rearing. I've read just enough to be dangerous, so I'm not going to really talk about it. Hey, Paul. Yeah, I am going to keep trucking, but when I say I'm keep trucking, I'm going to try to keep trucking as hard as I can to keep from trucking. But no, the job I have is actually pretty good. It's extremely flexible, which is very handy for what I have. They've been begging me to come back. It's been awesome, especially being able to tell them no for the last couple months. Yeah, if you can leave your alfalfa in bloom for a little while, alfalfa is a great plant for your bees, and you can still produce good alfalfa. The problem is if you have someone else cutting it for you, you can't always control that. But alfalfa is, I think, a great plant for taking care of your livestock or even selling it, and also for your bees. Why can't we feed bee syrup with essential oils with Pro DFM? I know you're not supposed to feed both, which I don't. Just curious if you knew. Well, probably because essential oils are really good about killing things. A lot of people think, oh, the essential oils, it's a natural product. It's got to be good. It's kind of like, if a little's good, a lot should be really good. That's not essential oils. A lot of them are natural insecticides. They are put inside plants to prevent bugs preying on them and other animals like deer and stuff. So I think we have to be really careful with essential oils. Most of the research we have on them is kind of sketchy, and there's not been enough. I think there's some merits there, but they are really good at eliminating bacteria. And Pro DFM, a lot of these probiotics and stuff, I don't think are going to go very well with it. Also think there could be an issue with nuking the bee system. Now, is there a certain dosage that is still giving us positive results for what it might do to the bees? Maybe they have European foul brood, something needs cleaned up. What's the dosage? What actually works? Are we wasting money? That's where this test yard would come in very, and a lot of very can't say anything. It would come in handy. I'm also talking to a couple PhDs and hoping that when the time comes that we can start doing more, answering more of these harder questions and actually having the colonies set aside and the equipment to do so, that I can have a couple PhDs that have experience in data gathering to kind of help chip in. and keep me on track so that we can do this as efficiently and as best as possible so I can get good information. All right. Yeah. Remind that wife of yours that beekeepers always like to see the queen. Well, the queen says she wasn't going to get on the live chat tonight. So this drone is saying good luck with that. Um, Poor thing. I don't think she's feeling good today. We worked really hard today. We got, as soon as we got up, we were out working bees. We made mating nukes today, grafted more queens, took some out of the starter, put them in the finisher, took some out of the finisher, put them in the incubator. We were not only prepping nukes, we were shaking bees. We were, I was pulling a little bit of honey from this yard, taking care of the garden. Everyone's got stuff they're doing around the house too, but it is literally, I was eating my dinner seconds before, and I didn't get to finish it before we started this live chat. And that's just the type of life that we lead right now. Not complaining, just the way it is. Hey, thanks for coming on, Ted. Is it common to have bees in the front of your beehives? I have dozens and several states of decay. Well, it depends on what it looks like. A picture would be great. That's possible. Of course, look up chalk brood as long as it's not like that. But if it's actually a bee that's dead, there is a pretty good bit of natural bee deaths that happen, especially once the summer dearth hits. The bees are hanging out there on the entrance, and some of them just kill over onto the ground. Especially once the bees hit peak population, queen might drop down to laying 800 eggs a day. She was doing 1,500. You're still, for a while, losing 1,500 bees every day just due to natural attrition. So, if it's not too awful many, it's probably no big deal. But there are some, excuse me, viruses that cause some issues with that. I think it's chronic Israeli chronic paralysis or something like that. Don't hold me to that, but one of those, you can have beautiful looking brood, and then they get to an adult age and they start twitching and dying at the entrance. But the problem is, it's really hard to distinguish this because some people look at, oh, their tongue stuck out. They're laying there with their tongue stuck out, or they're twitching. Someone's pesticide killed my bees. You might have a virus. You might be nutritionally compromised too, and your bees are starving to death. There could be a lot of things that show the same symptoms. That's why we've got to learn more about bees. And we've got to push the envelope so much because there's just it's hard. Hey Charles, we keep depending on the time of year between 200 and something to 400 colonies if you're counting nukes, and if we don't count many nukes, mating nukes into that. Hey, Houston, I got the long beehive. I have not used it. There are so many things that I have not done, and I was planning on it, and I said that I was going to. I apologize so much for that. I'm going to try to be better about not saying that I'm going to push for things and then just run out of time. We are so stretched thin right now, and I've just had to eliminate some things to just try to keep a grip on things, and of course the business is number one financially, trying to take care of my family, keep the bees healthy, and supply you all with good information. You can probably tell by some of my videos which ones that we are just trying to get a video up, and we haven't put as many up lately, and we're going to try to do better. I've got a couple pretty good ones coming up. Hey Cayman, when doing queen introductions using a queen cage with candy plug, will there be any negative effects to the queen if she is not released for a week after introduction? As long as she's still alive, that's perfectly fine. As long as the nurse bees are feeding her through the cage, there's nothing wrong with waiting a little bit longer. If anything, I'll give you a little bit of a brood break. If As long as they've accepted her a week later, that's fine. I've had that happen before. I had one I accidentally butted up against one of the wood parts of the frame, and I came back like 10 days later, and she's still in that cage. And it was great though. The mite, I was doing treatments at the same time, and we'll just wipe the mites out because of the big break, especially with the treatment. and the queen went down there and started laying it up. It was one of my best hives this year, as far as just beautiful looking brood. So there's nothing wrong with a brood break. Yeah, Frederick Dunn, I think he is doing something on the long Langstroth, and I really wish I had time to tinker with them more. There's a lot of things like that. Yeah, I do use ApiGuard as part of our mite management strategy, but not by itself. And I'm hoping to do some videos before too long on the efficient use of ApiGuard and do some mite washes. But that's whatever treatment that you're using. If you want to know for sure, you need to do a mite wash if you're needing 100% definitive answer on, was your treatment effective? I know a lot of people don't like to do them, but if you're wanting to know the truth, that is the best way to get it and find out if your treatment actually worked. Or just to try, you might do a treatment in June, come back in September, and you're already at too high of loads again, and you need to do something. That's a lot of the problems. Hey, Gino, thanks for coming on. Um, that's one of the problems that I dealt with for years, is just getting a hold of how to use these treatments, when to use the treatments, how often to use the treatments. And, a lot of that is just trial and error, trial and error. And thankfully, I was able to finally get a hold of some people that are wiser than I am to help me and bounce, and some just to bounce ideas off of. I was talking to Richard Noel the other day, and he, I thought I knew what was going on. I bounced it off of him, and he was like, "Yep, that's what we see here in France." And I was like, sometimes it's just nice to have somebody that you can just throw a question out. You know that they've got some experience, and just confirm that you are on the right track. Hey, Don Bearden, I didn't see that question. Any input on oxalic acid vapor with honey supers on? I find conflicting info on the internet, with some saying it's fine, others saying supers have to be off for 2 weeks. Confusing for a first year beekeeper. Legally in the United States, you must remove your honey supers before using oxalic acid vapor. Is it safe? That's up for debate. In some countries, it is legal, but here in the United States, it is not. There's It took us forever just to get the treatment made available. I personally know just that drinking my green smoothies, Swiss chard, spinach, water lentils, things like that, I eat a lot of oxalic acid. Honey contains some oxalic acids, but at what level is it harmful to the consumer? Is it at all harmful to the consumer? What are the risks? And we need more research. And the problem is beekeeping is not getting enough funding in these areas. But there are some scientists that are working on this kind of thing, and we just need to keep listening to them and supporting them. Sometimes the best way you can support somebody is just to talk about what they're talking about to other beekeepers, and actually listen to them. That's how you all support us. I mean, watching our videos helps encourage us to make better and more videos. But yeah, right now, don't. What do you use to treat in summer? So right now, I am using oxalic acid vapor at certain key times when the bees are broodless. Apivar strips, which you'll see in tomorrow's videos. Thymol product is also really good. Brood breaks is another mechanism that really helps eliminate mites, because mites only live for a certain period of time. I cannot remember the exact how long they live, so I'm not going to say it because I'll say something wrong. But they only live for so long. So whenever you make a brood break, you are knocking off a certain percentage that didn't have that one more chance to reproduce. And also bees could groom some off and things like that. Hey, Ohio Renegades, you did make it. How effective is OA dribble compared to vapor? I think it kills for another couple more days. So I think it's going to give you well, not only is it going to give you probably another 2 days, in my experience, of kill, but then on top of that, it kills a higher percentage than the vapor does, in my experience. I have made broodless splits, I not broodless splits, but splits that I dropped the queen in, only capped brood. There was a period where they were broodless, and I hit them with dribble. Extremely good mite drop, extremely good, much better than what I would get with a vapor. You have to watch it though. If they're using the sugar syrup dribble, you want to feed them sugar syrup so they don't go for the what's in the dribble. Vegetable glycerin would probably be a better dribble than sugar syrup. Tyler, do you make your own bottom boards? I don't have a dado saw. Been making them with plywood and raised wood strips from the deep boxes to sit on. Thoughts? Thanks. And go Huskers. Oh man, got some college football in there. I like you already. Even if you aren't SEC, will still take it. They better have some college football this year. I'm going to start picketing out there myself. You can take away a lot of stuff, but college football, my goodness. To answer your question, I have made hundreds and hundreds of bottom boards. If you count pallets and stuff, we're probably looking at 1,000. You can totally do it. If you don't have a dado saw, that's fine. You can make shims underneath them. That'll work. Main thing is use glue and use screws, and even more importantly, seal them well with paint. If water can get into that crack, it's going to cause it to swell and expand. That's one of the problems with paint. That's why I waxed it. It's a pain in the rear end, but taking that extra time to do all those things is going to give you a piece of equipment that's going to last a long time. Bottom boards take a lot of abuse. They're always got all that weight on them. One thing that we're going to hopefully try out in the near future is that product. I cannot remember the name of it. Somebody on here will, but you can dip your equipment into it. It's a powder. You mix it in water. You can dip your boxes in there, and then you can see how long that lasts in there. Um, you can dip and see how long that lasts. I really want to do that myself, and so we can give folks an idea. And it might be one of those things where it gives you 3 good years of protection. Some people say it does a lot better than that, but maybe it's so cheap you can afford to dip it again 3, 5 years later and maybe re-inoculate the wood. I don't know. But yeah, definitely making your own equipment. There's certain things I feel like you can save money making yourself. Bottom boards, lids are definitely two of those things. Hey Matthews, I have no experience with the AZ Slovenian hives for the hobbyist. I'm not a career beekeeper, but I would love to try one. I have very little education or experience. I'm absolutely sure that they will work. I just don't know how they work. That's one thing I want to learn. What is your primary uncapper when harvesting honey? I have a Cowan Silver Queen. I'm going to try to do a video on that this year and show you all how it works. It's a really nifty machine. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of honey to run through it, but it should be enough. We can still get a video. Did I miss? Hey, Trevor. Thanks so much for supporting our channel. It really means a lot to us. And thanks for coming on and taking part of your Saturday and spending it with us, learning more about bees. What do you do if you have a honey frame that is just 95% capped and some uncapped? I'm totally taking that thing. I'll tell you. Um, this is one thing that again the bee books are like, well, it's got to be a certain percentage capped, and there's tons of variables here. 70% is usually what is considered satisfactory and okay to pull your honey if it's 70% capped. However, last year I must have pulled 20 boxes of honey that hardly were capped at all, just maybe 10, 15, maybe 20% capped. I have a refractometer for honey and I'm able to test and see. And ever since I got that, it's been a really big eye opener how wrong a lot of this information has always been. You have to wait till it's 70% capped. A lot depends on the humidity of your area to a degree, but the bees are really good about drying their own hive out. They're very talented in that area. So as long as you have a refractometer, you can pull at any time that it's in the safe 18%, 17, 16%. That's one of the things that blew my mind is a lot of it wasn't capped. It was only about 10% capped, and it was like 16% moisture content. So there's some variables there, but if you don't have a refractometer, then it's best to wait till 70%. If it's past that, then you're good. Hey, Don, I didn't fully understand. After a round of brood has been raised and the bees fill that frame of comb with honey, do you harvest it? Oh, okay, I got it now. So I think a lot depends on what's been done with that comb. I really don't like using old brood combs to make honey, but if it's had like a round or two of brood in it and it hasn't had any treatments put on it, like something like an amatraz, like base treatment, like Apivar is, something like that, then yeah, totally. I've done that a bunch of times, and I think it's a great way to get your combs drawed. A lot of times is to bring the larvae up there with the foundations, get those drawn out, and sometimes you'll let her lay up there a little bit because that when she's laying up there, she really puts pressure on the comb builders because she's laying up all this. They're making it. They're like, all right, we're making this for storage. She lays it up, and they're like, all right, well, we got to make more storage space for all this honey. So a good queen is going to really help you draw a lot of comb, but you'll get some brood up in there, but there's no problem with letting if you push the queen below and get an excluder, or they just fill it up with honey later. Totally fine. Totally fine. Old brood combs can be a little bit nasty and will darken your honey a little bit. Yeah, I love a queen excluder. I used to not use them, didn't think I ever needed them. I actually learned how to use them properly. Queen excluder is one of my favorite tools. Tomorrow is my second favorite tool in beekeeping. Hey, Cayman, what are your thoughts on OA glycerin shop towel method? The method of that. Well, I think that there's a very good possibility that they could be a nice tool for beekeepers. Right now, they are illegal to use. So I can't really suggest everyone go out and try it. I also think that they are not a cure all. Nothing has proved to be so far. But we need to keep pushing the envelope, getting better products out there for our bees that are more natural and more effective against the varroa mite. Oxalic acid has been proven to be overall very gentle on bees, but it's also proved to be pretty short-lived as far as effectiveness goes. So we need a product that's extended. Randy Oliver's been doing a lot of research in that area, and that's what we kind of hope to push things to. Um, I cannot do everything, obviously, myself. A lot of the stuff that I've built off of has been from other people, and I think hopefully a lot of you all will be able to build off of this and take it to the next level. But I think there's some really good merits there, Philip. We just need to get it legalized, and we've got to have beekeepers pushing for it. The more interest, the better. Um, I need to talk to Randy Oliver and see what we can do to help encourage the EPA and the other powers that be to look at this more seriously and get this done. Because I feel like it's safe. It's definitely safer than some of the other products that are out on the market, like fluvinate or well, Apistan is one of them, and then the other one is Checkmite. Both of them are the mites have become very resistant to, but you can still buy them. They can still contaminate your combs. You can buy that stuff, but you can't make some oxalic acid glycerin towels. Say what, Laura? Yeah, maybe so. Hey, Don, thanks so much, buddy. You didn't have to do that. Roll Tide down there, and hey, you don't have to watch the whole video tomorrow, but there's a certain section in the center of tomorrow's video that is just for you. You've got to watch it. I know you'll know it when you see it. Do you leave a super on the hive or let them backflow syrup slash fall flow in the brood box? Also, when do you normally feed syrup after the flow? A lot depends on the colony's strength. There are some colonies I was feeding during the flow that obviously weren't going to produce honey for me. Young colonies just don't have a big foraging population. They need fed early. But as far as our general production colonies, what we're doing is we are taking the honey off right now. We're going to be showing you some of that coming up. Might be a week or so before we get the video up, but it'll happen. Get those boxes of honey pulled off, and usually there's a good bit of nectar and honey still in the brood frames down below. But we're going to split those colonies, treat them because we're breaking the mite cycle. We're also always needing to get more bees to help for what we've sold off. We also have occasional losses ourselves. Even this time of the year, for sure, some colonies go queenless. And so it's all part of our management strategy of honey floats done, splitting colonies, treating colonies, feeding colonies through the summer dearth, hoping the fall flow will be generous come late August, and then we're going to be able to hopefully let them go through winter with the real stuff. I have found many, many times that if I feed those bees in summer, yes, it's unnatural, but the colonies get are so much more stronger because I do it. Have such a healthier population of bees when that fall flow does come, they're better able to capitalize on it, and because of that, they get more of the natural in the fall. So, they burn through all that pollen sub and sugar syrup that I give them in summer anyways. It's not like it sits around. And sometimes we still have to feed going into fall. Last year was a pretty poor year. We had a great spring last year, poor fall. This year we had a poor spring, hoping that means this fall flow is going to be awesome. Were you doing something? So I thought you were signaling me. Let's see here. I'm in Lexington, Kentucky. What is the latest to make a split? So let me tell you, there's a lot of variables there. If you have enough bee power, you can make a split in December. That's right, in December, but you got to know what you're doing and it's higher risk. Definitely don't recommend that. You can totally make a split in September in Lexington. I have done it later than that. It's not recommended. Honestly, if I was trying to get the best results, I would do it in August. Feed that colony, feed that colony. It'll be fine. You can do it later than that. I've made splits as early as March 1st here in Tennessee. I split those colonies in freezing temperatures. The queens came from Hawaii, though. I was not producing my own queens. Yeah, I mean, obviously, the quicker you split them, the more time they'll have between now and fall. But splits are going to need nutrition. Hey, Terry McCarsky, um, happy birthday! So hope you're having a happy birthday, and or going to have a happy birthday or all that stuff. So I'll shout out happy birthday. I don't have a whole lot of shame. Laurel gets embarrassed for both of us. She'll tell me all about this crazy things that I shouldn't have done here in a minute. How much do you cut your honey production hives back each year to keep them from swarming? How many frames do you take out and of what? Well, it depends on the colony's strength. So that's one of those things where it takes experience. Um, the stronger the colony, the more we're going to take. There was a video that we did where you can actually see us doing one hive this spring, and it worked fantastic. No swarming. One of the best hives in the yard. It's still very strong. I just shook 5 frames of bees because I needed some more nurse bees. I shook 5 frames off into a Jester Easy Nuke box. It is called, oh goodness, I just lost it. If you go to our videos on our main channel page, it is the video that has the most views. It's got like 100 something thousand views. And the thumbnail says, rob the rich to feed the poor. And I took bees from that and beefed up the Apame hive and reduced that big colony down. The colony still did good. And if we'd have had a good honey flow, I promise you we'd have produced over 100 pounds of honey with that colony. But it works really good. But that video will help you visualize it, but it really depends on the strength of the colony, how much you're going to take. Some colonies might not need a thing taken from them. Oh, man, I haven't played my mandolin in forever. Um, let's see. So what was the name of that video? I think it was called "Stopping a Swarm Before It Starts" or "Preventing a Swarm Before it Starts." Stopping a swarm before it begins, something like that. You can look it up on the channel, but it's a pretty good video. It's a little long, but there's a lot of good information on there on what we do to keep our bees from swarming, and also getting splits out of it or beefing up colonies that are falling behind. You can give those bees to a colony that's looking good, queen's laying good, but they're just came out of the winter a little small, and you can beef them up to honey production size doing that. Now, normally, I'm not a fan of swiping from somebody who's worked really hard. In beekeeping, we do things a little bit different, but that should not be applied throughout everything in life. I'm sure the bees, if the big colony, if they had to say, they wouldn't have been happy about it. Like, we did all this work and you're giving it to those other little guys over there. Yeah, Don. Laurel's a champ. You should have seen her today, kicking butt out in the bee yard, really getting a lot of work done. Um, I will not be able to get done a fraction of what I'm able to do. She's my secret weapon. Well, the indications of laying workers are typically when you've been queenless for a while. Spotty pattern. Most importantly, you're going to see multiple eggs down into the cells, and you should over time you're going to see those are all drones because they haven't they're they can't fertilize. They haven't gone on a mating flight. The worker bee, so everything's going to be a drone. So they're going to widen up the cells. There's going to be multiple eggs down in there, but the problem is a brand new queen coming back from laying many times is bad about laying two or three eggs in a worker brood, and it'll be just fine. They'll have to cannibalize those eggs, and they'll just leave one. But a lot of times, those new queens, once they finally get that queen rearing started, they have to lay. They just go, 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 and just lay a bunch. Hey, Paula, welcome. Better. It always is better to be better. Better late than never. Oh, hey, Laurel commented. Uh-oh. Well, y'all better be careful. She'll get you. That cute giggle, don't let it deceive you. She knows how to blacksmith, so I fit. She can she can mold metal into shape. She could put me in my place. How often should you do a full inspection? Well, it really depends on the time of the year. If it's during the time of the year where your bees are really building up in spring and there's a lot of swarming going on, you might, especially if you don't know what to look for as much, you might go in there once a week, try to make sure that you're keeping on top of giving them space and doing everything that you need to do. But, you know, I don't, I very seldom, unless there's something critical going on, swarming, where I need to find the queen to replace her or to make a split. There's no reason to tear the hive apart. Most of the time, I'm going into a colony and I can spend 3 or 4 minutes in there and I know exactly what's going on if they need mite treatments. Now, I pretty much have a regimen with that, so that's not a problem. But I can see if there's issues that could be mite related problems. I can see queen related problems. If they have good larvae with plenty of milky jelly down in there, then, and there's plenty of brood, plenty of food, just leave them alone. Just it's good to check on them, but you don't have to, tear every frame apart and do a full complete inspection. And I think that's part of becoming an experienced beekeeper. I know when I first started, I'd spend 20 minutes on a colony, and now I get more done in 3 minutes. It's just, and that's why I had to get more bees, is because I was getting it done so quick. I was like, my goodness, I'm already done with this bee yard. I mean, we got to get more bees, Laurel. I got all this free time on my hands. I'm going to go crazy here. Robert, hi Cayman. Is that Vel you recommend still for sale at Kelly's? I can't find it on their website. It is there. It's the newer version. I like my older model better, but they haven't made it for I think over a decade or a very long period of time. The new one is very similar and it still is much better. My Ultra Bees, it's a great bee suit, but the Vel is hard to see out of. I mean, goodness, a gnat couldn't get through that Vel. A gnat of a gnat. I mean, it's ridiculous. I don't understand it. We got everyone's concerned about ventilation and bee protection. They can't see out of the darn things. And anyways, but that one from Kelly's, you can also get it built onto a vintage suit as well if you want more than just the tie down version of it. And the visibility is much better. and they do still sell it. I know they're hard to get a hold of right now, but hopefully that'll change soon. But if you do get anything, just tell them Cayman sent you. I'm not getting anything out of it. I do like to let them know how many people that I recommend to a degree, just because when I go up there, um, I like to mess with people a little bit, not in a mean way, but just like, you know what, if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't hardly be selling any of these vels. And I'm like, so where's my cut? And they're like, well, you know what, the last time I think they offered me a piece of their bee candy or something. That was my cut. So we have a fun time up there. I like laughing. Hey Tim, yeah, I am a speaking machine. I've been speaking like this since I was a kid. I actually finally have something people are interested to listen to for a change. Um, it's really weird though. I get it from my mom. Um, she's quite the talker as well, and but in a good way. We're networkers, and so is my grandpa. I got a lot from him. My humor definitely comes from my Papa Jim, and he was such a great grandpa, and he always told me that came in relationships very important. And my dad said the same thing. As a teenager, what did I want to do? I don't want to deal with anybody. But as I've gotten older, I've realized that my parents were right. But I do enjoy talking about bees quite often. My poor wife, she gets so tired of hearing about the bees. She loves it. But could you imagine listening to this 10 hours a day? Yeah, I'm I'm sorry. Let's see. How do you maintain your numbers and still prevent swarming? Must I start selling off nukes? Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, David. Once you start becoming successful at a high level with your bees, you are going to have to split your bees, or you are going to have to let swarms go. If you have great queens, dead mites, and good nutrition, you're going to have swarming, or you're going to be making splits. There's no way around it. That's the way the bees want to be, and that's the way it was very, back before all these pests and stuff came over. It was much more common. It's much easier for people to run bees in their backyard, not even be much good at beekeeping, and still make enough honey for their family. It's changed a lot. Management is more important than ever due to the pests that we have. But yes, that's I get that question a lot. And once you get to that point of success, where your colonies are very strong, you've got to make splits or something. But it's wise. You can make your own 5 frame nuke boxes from Advantech or CDX, or try to keep it cheap. Make yourself some small splits. You can sell them if you want to. You're eventually going to have a colony go queenless or something like that. Something's going to happen. You got a backup back there. It happens to everybody. It definitely happens to us. Hey Terry, have a good night. Which Vel model at Kelly's was it? I cannot remember. Right off the top of my head, the model of it. Um, some of my videos I wear it in. I still keep wearing my 17-year-old one, but it is falling apart at the seams, and it's breaking my heart because the visibility is so amazing out of that thing. And you know, I have spent thousands of hours in that B Vel, and it's just like an old white T-shirt. There's just nothing like it. Well, that's nice, Roy. That Frederick Dunn has done that a couple times, where he has done shout outs about queen rearing, and now the Apame hive coming over to our channel. And that's, just tells you a lot about Fred and the type of person that he is. Very generous and very concerned about helping his subscribers as well find information. And we try to live up to his recommendation. I've enjoyed everything I've seen of Frederick's as well. I think he's got some really good stuff. And he's him, Richard Noel, Ian Stepler, Bob Binney, good fundamental beekeepers. I know there's others out there as well, but those are some of the people that, if I'm going to sit down and watch, I really do enjoy. That University of Gulf. Those are some really good beekeeping channels. Okay. Hey, David, how's it going? I tell you, I've known David for a long time. He lives fairly close to me, and we've bounced ideas off of each other over the years. And he's one of those beekeepers that I talk about that. Someone was asking, I think about how many hives that you run, but David doesn't run as many hives that I do, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he doesn't understand things the same. There's been so many times where I've bounced ideas off of him, and he's got such a good fundamental grasp on beekeeping that he can help me either one confirm what I think that I know, or even push me in maybe a direction that I didn't. And I've had beekeepers that have had a fraction of the colonies that I do that have encouraged me in ways to try new things that have really paid off in the long run. So fundamental beekeeping doesn't matter if it's 5 hives or 5,000. It's pretty much the same. Yeah, Bass Pro. I think it is called the Clear View, possibly. I don't know if Kelly's calls it that. Man Lake and Kelly's, even though they're kind of one of the same, there's still a lot of hiccups there between the two of them. Let's see. Yeah, one of the things that Dillinger just said, there's a lot of rain. You can have orientation flights. Some people that don't understand what the difference between a swarm what a swarm really looks like, you can have like 3 or 4 days of rain and you have a big population of bees. And if your queen's laying 1,200 eggs a day, then every day you're getting 1,200 new bees. Every day you're getting 1,200 probably bees that are going to orientation flights. But when it's happening every day, it's not quite as big of a scene. But what if you have 3 or 4 days of rain and you have multiple days worth of orientation flights? Shoot, you could have 4 or 5,000 bees taking orientation flights all at the same time. You've got this cloud of bees going around and familiarizing themselves with your hive. And so that's a common misconception for new beekeepers is when they see that and they think their bees are swarming. Spencer, do you split with queen cells or mated queens in the summer? I do both. It really depends on the situation, but more and more I'm relying on queen cells. I love using queen cells. Just you make the split. Go ahead and make the split with the cell. Now, of course, it takes a little bit longer for that cell to come back and start laying, and you do have a percentage that don't come back. If the weather's good and I have good quality queen cells, we're talking 75, 80% takes. But what about the 20? If I make 100 of them, what about the 20 or 25 or 30 that do not come back with a queen? Well, that's where instead of making 100 queen cells for the splits, I'm going to probably make 140 queen cells, and then I'm going to have 30 or 40 extra mating nukes going if I don't already have them. And then I'm going to let them bring those queens back. And then between the excess and what was lost on the original splits with the cells, I'm going to have extra mated queens that I can bring over and put into this. So I'm going to get 100%. It's going to take me 130 or 140% in order to get that. That's again having backups to ensure that you get the percentage that you want. It just is part of agriculture. Yeah, you got to do it. Also, like the queen cell, because again, you're getting that brood break. It compounds the effectiveness of every treatment. The bigger the brood break you have, if it's a complete one, it's the best. If you get a partial one, that still really helps your treatments eliminate those varroa mites. Definitely underutilized. Hey Paula, I answered this earlier. I am so sorry that those cats are no longer alive. Some of the neighbors' dogs are really rough, and also one I think got hit on the road. So we are catless at this time. But this area has always been this county. There's so many people that have dogs, and they just run around and half wild. We got coyotes. Cats don't have a long life expectancy if they're outdoor cats, and we definitely aren't bringing cats in the house. I'm too allergic. But now, one thing again, I wanted to say thanks so much for everyone who's contributed, either financially, just watching our videos, liking our videos, commenting on our videos. encouraging words. A lot of you have sent messages via email, Facebook, YouTube, our PO box. I have not been able to respond to a fraction of those, and it's just impossible because it's hundreds a week. But I have seen all of those PO box letters. I'm trying to get back to some of you. I'd like to say a special thank you to those of you who have donated via PayPal. Um, I cannot remember everyone's names. I want to send you a message back at some point. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And it's just been an honor being able to talk to you all about bees. Um, it's very, very humbling. Now, and there's a lot of people that have contributed. We've had so many people who have gone through our Audible link. You can get a free book that way. I want to mention that again because it does help us out significantly. And you don't have to pay a dime if you don't go past the free trial. You get to keep that free book forever, download it. You get some other Amazon books as well. You can download that, keep that forever. There's beekeeping books out there, there's agriculture books I love. You can get that free trial. Go through our link that's in the description. It really significantly helps our channel. All that money goes towards funding the test yard that we're going to be experimenting on insulated hives versus non-insulated hives. We're also going to be testing out mite treatments, natural, no treatments for the control, brood breaks, genetics, and every year, of course, we can switch things up. But that's what we're really pushing towards going down the road is getting some testing, and it's not just for for you guys. I want to experiment with these things as well because there's a lot of questions that we have in beekeeping. We really need the answers to. Cayman, do you have any sourwood in your area? I do. Very sparse. It's not enough to produce any honey, but and the thing of it is, I usually have 30, 40, 50 colonies to the yard. So what's a trickle for me, if you have two colonies or one, you might even get a little bit of excess off of it or something. A lot of variables, tons of variables. Soil makes a big difference on nectar and pollen production. Rainfall, colony strength, amount of colonies in the area, amount of beekeepers in the area, a lot of different things. Hope Sadler, can you give us the P.O. box for those of us who don't use PayPal? Our P.O. box is P.O. Box 332, Gainsboro, Tennessee. Oh, Laurel beat me to it. Doggone it. It's always that way. Always. It's always one step ahead. After you pull supers, do you reverse brood boxes? Matthew, no, I typically don't. Our honey production colonies, pretty much these days, are all in single brood chambers. So all of our brood is down there. Our queen's down there. It's very efficient for us to split the hive. We know where all the brood is. We know where to find the queen so we can make the split. It's easier to treat the colonies because the varroa mites are by a very, very large percentage on the nurse bees or in the capped brood. So we know where that's all going to be. So single brood chambers, more and more I'm going towards it because it works very well. But you can't just throw an excluder on and expect it to work. It's definitely a system. Hey, Jonathan. If you got a question, go ahead and throw it on out there. Thank you so much for donating to our channel. We appreciate it very much. And I don't think I've seen you on here before, but maybe you've been watching the last couple chats. Hey, Rich. Hey, Cayman, is Tennessee's Bees LLC you on B Source? It depends on who's asking, but yes, it is. Now, see, there's another Tennessee's Bees, or Tennessee honeybees, or Tennessee's honeybees. That's what it is out there. And after we got our LLC, he decided to almost use the same name that we have, and it's created a lot of confusion for us. And we're honestly thinking of possibly switching a couple things up because we're having a lot of people that are asking us questions or placing orders with us go to them, and it's just been a pain in the butt. Matthew Novak, how many gallons of honey do you get per hive average? Thank you. Well, this year was the worst year I've ever had in record, so this is the wrong year really to ask for that. Um, I tell you, typically, if we have an average year and I have a good, strong colony, I expect 80 to 100 and something pounds off of that colony. But these are ripped colonies ready to go, drawn comb ready to fill with honey. A lot of work goes into creating colonies like that. Average, we're going to say between everything that's supposed to produce just honey and colonies that are just producing a little honey on the side of being made for splits, then we're probably looking somewhere around an average on a good year, 70 pounds. And, so we're talking about 5-ish gallons a colony, and there's some colonies last year that I had that produced like 9 gallons each. Last year was nice. It was really nice. And it was really hard on my back though, let me tell you. And we're gonna yeah, probably switch things over to just Cayman Reynolds. It's a lot easier to remember than Tennessee's bees. And honestly, because of the YouTube channel now, we are pretty much all over the place. I mean, I'm talking to beekeepers more outside of Tennessee than I'm not, which is pretty cool. And that's another thing I'll mention again. If you can talk to your bee club about having me on Zoom. I've been starting to do that. Last or Monday was my first time. I'm going to be doing another place in North Carolina. I did one in Oklahoma. It was a great experience. I'm able to do slides and presentation so people can see what I'm telling them, so they can visualize what they should be seeing or should not be seeing. And if your club isn't looking for people to do that because they're not holding meetings right now, then I can't do a ton of them. But if we plan it out, I can do some. So that is a possibility. How many splits can you make from one hive? Well, it depends on how good the queen it is, how good the float is, how intensively you feed them, and how long your season is. I totally, if I wanted to just split bees like mad and not make any honey, goodness, I bet I could turn a colony into 6 over the course of a season. I mean, and I don't want little colonies. I don't want 3-frame colonies. I'm talking like singles, 8 to 10 frames of bees. Some you can do whatever you want, but I feel like some of the YouTube channels out there are misinforming the average beekeeper that it is normal for colonies to be kept in little 5-frame nukes all the time. That is not normal. Healthy colonies will not stay that size very long. Some beekeepers like to keep their colonies small. Some people don't know how to make them big. A good, healthy, strong colony during peak part of the flow can easily occupy 5 deep boxes if it's managed properly here in Tennessee. Would it be unreasonable to make splits off of first year packages? They are all 10 plus frames strong. You totally could do that. Now, it depends on your area and how long your season is, but I really like thinking about splitting once my colonies have really started drawing their second deep well. We're talking about 14 to 15 frames of bees. I feel like that's a good splitting size. Splitting them before they've started drawing on that second deep can be done, but I really prefer to see the colony at the point where they're not too far away from drawing that second brood chamber. Nothing wrong with splitting that if you're wanting to get more bees. Well, sounds like somebody's extracting honey down there in Australia. Do you know of any chemical ways to eliminate parasites? Well, definitely the Amitraz product, Amitraz and Apivar is a synthetic, but oxalic acid is a chemical. So, there's a lot of chemical ways to do it. If you got soap and water and doused your bees in that, you would get a very, very high rate of mite kill and just wipe your colony out in the process. Chemicals are interesting. Hey, Jonathan. So you're down in southeast Louisiana. I know you said to use oxalic acid, and how many treatments should I do in a month? But should I double up with other treatments? Um, Honestly, Jonathan, if you're wanting the best results, then I would use oxalic acid with something else. You're going to have to do a lot of oxalic acid, especially being in southeast Louisiana. You all brood like crazy down there. I brood a lot up here, and you're going to be producing a lot of bees if they're healthy, but also a lot of mites. You're going to have to use that oxalic acid out a lot. If you use a alcohol wash, I think it open your eyes to how quickly the mites can grow. It depends on a lot depends on your colonies, what stage they're in, how many mites they have. But Apivar is a product that will help you out with the oxalic acid, but it is a synthetic, and some people don't want to use that. You'll have to watch your season for using other natural products like Thyme or formic because those products in hot weather can off gas too quickly and damage the bees in the process. The Apivar and oxalic acid vapor are very gentle on the bees. Hey, Mark, sounds like you've got some queens going. So you did OAV on 4 and lost all the queens. I've never done oxalic acid vapor on new queens until they've laid, probably for 14 days or so. Well, no, no, that's a lie. I usually do the oxalic acid vapor right about the time right before they've capped it. So that's not quite that long. But I haven't ever had a problem once the queen's laying good. I don't have issues now. If you did it right when she starts laying or when she's a virgin, you are going to probably get rid of the queen because they'll ball her. Yeah, Houston. Laurel took care of them. Um, you know, Nothing really gets past her for very long. Hey, Aaron. Yeah, it's a crazy year. Doing a lot of feeding and stuff. I've gotten those crazy looks coming out of Walmart carrying shopping carts full of sugar. Back in the day, I was getting all of it from Walmart in 25-pound bags, and it moved to pallets. And now, thankfully, we're able to buy syrup by the tote. I think more and more clubs, the more beekeepers are successful, the more people you'll have nearby, relatively nearby, that in clubs that can pool their resources together to do bulk buys on either equipment or feed or whatever and be able to save a lot of money. Buying in bulk is great. Rich, do you winter in doubles? Last year I overwintered in triples, doubles, singles, and nukes. You can do it all here in Tennessee as long as you have a healthy young cluster, and that comes from managing your bees now in summer. Right now is the end of our year for beekeepers in this area. The honey flow for me is over, and now every day is in preparation of the spring flow. And winter to me, we don't get harsh winters here. I don't even know if you can call it. I was born in Indiana. Well, they don't get winters down here in Tennessee. Bees don't die, from cold weather here in Tennessee. If your bees die in winter, that's because they had something wrong going on in late summer and fall. That's what happened. Yeah, of course, Aaron. Whenever you're going out of Walmart with sugar or Sam's Club or something like that, and you're like, "Yeah, yeah, I'm feeding my bees with it." People are like, "Oh, okay," but they're like, that person's either doing drugs or moonshining or both. Most of the time, it's moonshining. Yeah, Dave. When I buy sugar, they're like cookies. Well, They ask, "Are you that much cookies?" And you're like, "I've got a bunch of grandkids." You blame it on the grandkids. Might as well. They eat all the food in the house anyways. I don't have grandkids yet, but I've got a 4-year-old son defying the laws of physics every day with his food consumption. Hey, Roy Hendershot, I actually have checked the Beetle Buster board since I put it on yesterday, and I think I counted 7 dead beetles. It was 7, yeah. So 7, and it was under 24 hours. It was probably around 18 hours when I checked it. So, I think it's definitely a viable option for killing beetles. This is going to be a harder year for getting high levels of beetle deaths because it's been so cold. I'm seeing a very low level of small hive beetle activity this year compared to normal, and that is just due to the weather. Back in '06 through '10, um, even years after that, we totally had more higher levels of small hive beetles, and I partially think the bees are getting more resistant to them. I'm raising all of my own bees now, and obviously we're breeding from the survivors, but I see bees constantly. The beetles running around, my bees are gang tackling, they're bullying them. I'm also getting much better these days about keeping my colony strong and healthy, so the beetles don't get much of a foothold. The weather has also helped, so small hive beetles will always be an issue, but I think as time goes on, the bees are going to become more and more resistant to aggressively dealing with bullying the beetles, actively yanking larvae and chucking them out if there's any in the hive, going after the eggs and getting rid of those as well. Who is a good sugar supplier? Well, there's a lot of different places you can get sugar, obviously. Some people have said they can get theirs from Coca Cola, but it's a high fructose corn syrup 55, like people drinking soft drinks. And you can get that fairly cheap. I know in Memphis, my friend Gus, he goes to Cargill down there, and you can get it very inexpensive. The high fructose corn syrup 55. I prefer not feeding that, but I know a lot of successful beekeepers who use it. So that is an option for that. As far as bulk granulated sugar, I know there's a place down in Georgia that sells it very cheap in totes. I think it's 27 cents a pound, but I cannot remember the address and location. It's very deep South Georgia. Alabama's got a location. There was a place in Alabama, though. There's a different place. They were selling sugar stuff as source floor sweeping sugar, and come to find out it was powdered sugar. And a lot of beekeepers were having issues with it because they didn't realize they were putting cornstarch in there as well. Pro Sweet is a little pricey, even at bulk. I mean, you don't save a whole lot of money, but it is nice having a syrup. Um, Sometimes you can find syrup in other places. If I see any good deals out there that are consistent, I will let people know. And that's again where if you get on my Facebook page, you go and you follow me whenever I find good, if they're doing a big sell on Ultra B patties or the sub or anything like that. I usually post those if I see them, or I have people that let me know and then I'll repost. $8 for a 5-gallon bucket of 67% sucrose. That's pretty good price. My Virgin Queen available. My Virgin Queen hatched a week ago. I found a ball of bees and a queen on the ground 5 feet from the hive. I captured her and placed in the hive. Do you think she made it to have that much pheromone? Um, if they balled her once like that, I don't know how good of a success that'll work putting her in the hive. I don't know. Maybe they ended up having another queen try to fly in. There's so many variables with queens and being balled by bees. A lot of times, how virgins get killed is though beekeepers getting into the hive during that time and using the smoke and messing up whatever dynamic is going on. A laying queen is so easy to keep the bees happy with her. There's times I did a video in December requeening a hive with a laying queen. I took like 3 frames from a small, healthy colony. It was just overwintering, and Another one in December that had a drone layer, killed the drone laying queen, plugged those in, no newspaper, no nothing. I even used smoke, laying queen, super easy. Bees love laying queens, especially if she comes with nurse bees and stuff that already have that mandibular pheromone. I'm going to be talking about that in tomorrow's video. Tomorrow's video is going to have a lot of information. And it's easy to plug it in, but when you're talking virgins, they're so sensitive, and beekeepers bumping even the hive sometimes when there's a virgin in there can cause the queen to get bald. I don't think we have any sugar mills around here. No beet processing. Definitely no cane sugar. At least none that I'm aware of. Yeah, definitely talk to, like Ian said, bakeries and stuff like that. But Walmart, at least here locally, at certain times they can be as low as 34 cents a pound for a 25-pound bag of sugar. Some places are more expensive than that. I think last time I looked, though, it was at 38 cents. It fluctuates from year to year, and even month to month. I do like having syrup, though. It's already mixed up. I can just pour it out. I need to do a video on how we do that. I'm fixing to do a video. Now, this is probably going to be a week or two out on our feeding system on the back of the truck. And I like it. It's handy. And you can make smaller versions of it if you have several hives, and it works pretty good. Let's see. Hey, Chuck. I actually am not doing a live chat tomorrow. I am releasing a video tomorrow. That it's going to be pretty educational, I think, in a lot of different ways. Our live chats are pretty random. Honestly, it's whenever we find time to do it. Last week we were planning on doing one, and we found out the power company was going to shut down the power at 10 p.m. And so we are like, well, maybe we should just go ahead and do it a little early. And then they decided, surprise, to shut it off at like 4 p.m. And thankfully, we didn't tell anybody we were just fixing to announce it and everything. Our electricity comes from the dam on Dell Hollow. So, and there's other dams, a lot of dams around here. And so that was a no go. But it's pretty random when we do these live chats, and depending on the time of the year, and we'll see. I can't do them a lot. Running out of time. I need to find more time to not do bee stuff for sure. Laura would appreciate that. I know I need to do it for myself as well. Hey, Brian. I did get the pump squared away. I finally got it sent back, and well, I got it sent back a long time ago. I finally got my money for it last week. Let's see, February, March, April, May. It took like 3.5 months to get that squared away. So I spent a quarter of the year with like $1,600 out with in a pump that didn't work. They blamed a lot of the slowness on COVID, but they're just stinking slow. These bee companies are swamped. But also that they're not. This happens even in years without the lockdown. Wasn't very happy about it. The Ohio State Buckeyes, hopefully black eyes this year if they make it to the playoffs. If there's football this year, there better be. What about feeding molasses water, Paula? Actually, you really shouldn't do that just because one of the good things about molasses for livestock and mammals is that it has a very high, especially blackstrap molasses, high level of mineral content, lots of really good vitamins. Really, if you're going to have a sugar and that high of concentration, blackstrap molasses is very good. But the problem for bees is they don't use that for their source of minerals and vitamins. They need their carbs and their energy in a pure form of fuel. And that's why when the bees bring it in, they actually have a filter in their body that very, very aggressively filters nectar. It's got to get stuff out of there to keep it from spoiling. They not only filter themselves when they take it, they hand it off to another bee. Most nectar gets filtered multiple times before it's actually placed in the cell. This helps ripen it. This also helps filter it. And this is really important. Now, during the main part of the season where the bees can get out and fly, it's no big deal because all of that roughage, they can go out and, you know, let her go. And but during the winter time, this can be if there's too much roughage, even in the honey, which can happen. Some honeys are really bad about that, or it crystallizes and they can't filter it good enough. Especially feeding something with cornstarch or trap molasses can cause a lot of dysentery problems in winter. I still wouldn't recommend doing it in the regular part of the season. Yeah, black strap molasses does have high iron. It is very good for your garden, though. So, Paula, if you have that, you can use, if you're watering your garden, you can use a couple tablespoons per gallon. Very good for your plants. The mineral content in there, but also it helps stimulate the fungi and the bacteria that are in your soil, helping them grow to larger populations, helping them consume other roughage in the dirt that has not been converted to plant food, and it is very good for foliar sprays and feeding your plants. And we actually just harvested like 100 bulbs of garlic, and we're taking care of our cucumbers. I absolutely love gardening. You can find the bee val that's similar to the one I use at Kelly's Bees. You can tell them that I sent you, and they'll point you in the right direction of the val. Some people call it the clear view. I cannot remember the model number. It's a canvas hood built into a screen. It is very nice. I think it has the best visibility on the market. You can get it made to go in with a jacket or a full suit, or you can get it with a string and tie it down. Yeah, Dadent, a New York baseball official or whatever, um, my data is slow. It doesn't matter if there's COVID going on. It doesn't matter if there's an earthquake. It doesn't matter if there's truck drivers sitting around waiting for work to ship their product. Data has been slow for decades, and they are slowly, I think, going to run themselves out of business. I hope not, but they are lackluster. They need requeened, is what Data needs. And if anyone from Dayton on here is watching this, you guys need to shake some things up because it's you guys have some cool products. You really do, but you are slower than molasses coming out of a freezer. Man Lake's slow too, but Dayton's been slow for a long time before Man Lake was even popular. Yeah, and that's the thing. A New York baseball official. A lot of people are like, okay, well, I'm not going to order from Dayton, so I'm going to go to Man Lake. There are people just frustrated and coming out in droves because they're having issues with Man Lake. Um, if you can find a local supplier, it's good. This is maybe one of the best tips I'll give you tonight. If you need something, order it before March. I know that a lot of you you're new to beekeeping, and so it's harder to know that beforehand, but I have learned order it before March. Get it while the getting's good, and it still can be a little hard even that time of the year, but after March things get crazy, and they blame oh, we're slow because of COVID. That has made them some slower, but their beekeeping supplies are usually slow this time of the year anyways. Do you sell your honey at $1 per ounce? Hey, Junior Z, if you want to buy some honey, I will totally sell you all the honey you want at $1 an ounce. I do not. We sell ours for much less than that, usually somewhere around $5 a pound, give or take the location. Some places more, some places a little less, depends on if people are buying it by the case, by the bucket. This year, we're not going to be doing any by the bucket sales because of the low volume of honey. Um, I don't sell any of my honey hardly individually at all. I sell it to people who buy it by the case and who resell it. They can make some money off it. I don't have time to sit somewhere. If you can get $1 an ounce, knock yourself out. It's fantastic. But the bigger you get and the more honey you produce, the harder it's going to be to do that. I know beekeepers who said, "Oh, I'm never going to lower it any less than $10 a pound." You start producing 2 or 3 thousand pounds of honey a year, and you end up coming around to the next season, you still have 1,000 uh, pounds of honey in your basement. And it depends on your location. If you're towards a bigger city and there's a lot of people who have more money, willing to, you can move more product quicker, then there you go. A lot of it has to do with marketing and your time. So it's different for everybody. Have you ever made hive bodies from plywood? Not really. I've made some 5 frame nukes from plywood, and the main thing is getting a decent plywood. CDX is good. Advantech can work. The biggest problem with any material is it needs to be sealed great. Coat every part of it you can. Get all the edges, get where they joint, get the inside where they join together. Paint it, paint it, paint it. Boxes, especially out of Advantech, would be way too heavy. But personally, I would rather just buy it myself. That's just me though. Try to find some Amish and get it cheaper. I think the Amish are selling it for $12 or $13 a deep box made out of cypress right now. It's a whole lot cheaper than what you can buy at other places. I haven't seen anything. Frederick Dunham did some interesting videos on testing different syrup ratios and also adding essential oils or honeybee healthy to see what the bees preferred. You know what he found that good plain old sugar syrup, the bees love it more than the ones that have all the other stuff added to it. So that again, it's costs a lot of money for a lot of these bee additives, and a lot of them just end up being a couple products that we're not even sure if they help the bees out, and it's very expensive. I prefer putting my money towards things that I know work. Better Bee does have a couple cool products that you can't get from other places. I haven't ordered a whole lot from Better Bee, to be honest. There's a couple things I'm wanting to try of theirs that they don't really have anywhere else. They have a new product that is a queen cell made out of imitation wax, and basically you can put a virgin in there and let her chew out of that. So you can introduce basically a queen cell into your hive. And the virgin is able to chew herself out and introduce herself. It's I feel like queen cells with a good queen in there are better than introducing virgins. Virgins are a little bit more of a pain in the butt, but I don't have a lot of experience with Better Bee. Hey, Houston, I've got plastic and metal excluders. They both work. Metal excluders are the best just because they're going to last longer. They're tougher, they're easier to clean. I think the bees pass through them a little bit better, but the new plastic ones, they do a pretty good job about keeping them from having the sharp edges that can rough up the bees. I've got a bunch of them, and the bees do really well with them. So, the plastic ones want to warp and stuff. That's one of my biggest complaints with them. And again, cleaning them off is a little bit more of a pain. You can freeze them and bust it off, but they're just not going to last as long. But you don't have as much of an investment. So that's one of the things. Like if you go on our Facebook page and you follow me, if I ever see or someone I know sees like excluders on flash cells or something like that, like we did with the Ultra Bee patties a while back, a lot of times I'll post that on my Facebook if I'm aware of it. And then you can also know when you can get metal excluders, maybe 30-40% off. But I do love the metal excluders. I've got, I don't know, 125 of them, and I'm probably going to buy maybe another 100 of them. Yeah, Aaron, I don't know if I agree with your inspector on mites could live up to a year without brood to latch onto. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't think it is, but then again, I could be wrong. Then again, the bees can't live a year without brood either. So I've never heard of anybody overwintering, bees without brood for 365 days. Um, but I don't know. And I don't know. Your state inspector might be right in some ways. Maybe he missaid something. I don't know. That doesn't sound right at all to me. I do know that our state inspector's been wrong about a few things. He's very pretty pretty big advocate of nobody ever feeding pollen patties in this state, and he loves my YouTube videos. I don't think he watches them. I'm feeding pollen patties all the time, and I'm telling people to do it carefully. South of you in North Carolina, where's the latest you stop making splits where you're at in Tennessee? You can make them here in September, October, November, but preferably don't make them any later than early September. Make them strong. Know what you're doing. It's better to do them in August, Mark. There's a lot of variables there, but if definitely don't be doing walk away splits late. You got to have a mated queen that's going to be coming out and start laying good within the week. Yeah, Houston. I actually told Laurel I was going to keep this chat at around 2 hours, but I tell her that pretty much every time we go to 3 hours. But there's always so much to talk about. There's always so many new things. Those who came on late, we're experimenting shortly with these algae patties. The small hive beetles are supposed to not like them, and they're supposed to still help our bees out. The algae and the spirulina is very good for humans as well. I'm not saying eat these because there's a lot of other things in here like thyme essential oil, other essential oils, coconut oil. They're more healthy alternatives, but we're going to be putting too much for the size of the colony in the test and seeing if the beetles will eat these things. That's our number one thing. A lot of people want to feed protein, but if you do Ultra B, say you throw a pound and a half on a 5 frame nuke, small hive beetles are going to be all over the place. These are supposed to repulse the small hive beetles, and we will see if they do. And even if they do, how about the bees? I know from testing that they consume them pretty rapidly, just a little bit. Um, but how is that going to translate into brood? Are the bees going to brood up well off of it? So we're going to see. I'm going to try to take 4 colonies because I got 40 pounds left, and I am going to again, they're going to be about the same size, 5, 6-ish frames of bees, all 2020 queens from my own bees. I'm going to put Apivar in each one of them because it's going to be an extended kill. It's all going to be the same treatment. It's very effective at killing mites, and also it's very gentle on the bees. So it's not going to mess with our testing at all. And it doesn't affect the small hive beetle. Some of the treatments out there can affect the small hive beetle. I don't want anything that's going to affect them. I want small hive beetles to actually be around, nosing around these patties and trying to lay in them if they will. And if they don't, then I'm going to let you guys know so you can try out these healthy bee patties as well if you feel like it's necessary and your bees could benefit from a boost. But then again, a lot of people have made bold claims over the years. This company definitely is made some bold claims on what these patties will do. I'm very skeptical. But again, this is how we learn is by trying things out. But thank you, Healthy Bees, for sending us this 40 pounds. They sent it to us for free. And that way I am able to try it out and see for myself if I want to buy a pallet maybe later. And also, you all can see if it's something that'll be fairly decent for you guys. Hey, New York baseball official, I really appreciate you coming on tonight, and I'm glad that the information has helped a little bit. So the patties, Houston, you can get those from Healthy Bees. I think they're made down in Florida. They've got a website. I think you can just look at Healthy Bees patties or something like that. It'll pull up. They have some pretty outlandish claims. I've talked to some people about them, and I'm not saying that there's not merit to that, but then again, you can stick bees in a cage. You can feed them nothing but this patty and get 100% mite kill or 50%. Oh, it's significantly reduced mites. But what happens when you have a big colony and you have tons of brood? Is it going to translate into that? There could be so many different things. I don't know all the ways they've tested this stuff. I am just too skeptical. I've seen too many products over the years and seen too many con artists in beekeeping. I'm not saying these guys are like that at all. I've talked to them. I actually feel like when I talked to John that he was very honest about the limitations of the patties. And that's why right now we're just focused on are the bees going to brood up good with them? And we're focused on the small hive beetle is going to eat them and reproduce in them, try to reproduce. And if we can get even just a serious reduction in small hive beetle aggression towards the desirability to the patties, then that's a big step forward. I also like the fact that they're made with algae. I like having that instead of something like corn and soy and things like that. Hey, Dansky's bees. I could put them in my shakes. I actually took a nibble of them when I first got them. I personally believe that if the patty, is disgusting to me, then it's going to be disgusting to the bees. These patties were not too bad. It kind of was like a cross between licorice, gum, and mint and mouthwash all mixed in together. It wasn't the best in the world, but it wasn't too bad. Hey, hi-fi. I haven't seen as much small hive beetle activity this year, hi-fi, and that's one of the reasons why when I'm testing these patties out, I'm going to really try, like on a 5 frame nuke, just put like a pound and a half, maybe even 2 pounds of patties on at a time, and just give the small hive beetles every chance in the world to set up shop in these patties. If I was to throw 2 pounds of these suckers on a double deep, small hive beetles don't stand a chance. My bees are going to tear these things apart and eat them up. I did throw a half a pound on a colony that was pretty small. They ate it well. The patties seem pretty dry, but as they get into the hive, they get moist, but not too moist. And I looked at the bottom board afterwards, and there was probably 0.001% waste. They ate it very well. Well, Houston, keep them down there at your yard, please. We really appreciate the break from the small hive beetle, but we really deserve it here in Tennessee and Kentucky. Our weather was so bad. Oh my goodness, it just destroyed our honey flow for the most part. But having a smaller population of small hive beetles is a very small consolation prize for that. I have a 5 frame nuke that beards up every evening in front of the hive. I made a split from a swarm cell and they are still bearding. I'm in central Alabama. Any thoughts on why they are doing that? They're doing that because they're too hot. They've got to get those warm bodies out there. Bees are a very hot natured insect. I cannot remember the exact temperature, but I think bees die at like 100, almost 120 degrees. It's somewhere thereabouts. Maybe it's 118, 121. 123, somewhere in that vicinity. Bees die, but they can heat their body temperatures extremely hot, and this is important during buildup in the winter months so they can help raise brood. The bees are basically machines. I mean, flying machines, warming machines, wax producing machines. They're amazing creatures. And they run. They're like generators. They run off of honey. It's very expensive fuel, let me tell you. Um, but in the summertime, they've got to keep cool, and they're hot natured insects. So they got to get those warm bodies out of there to cool it as good as possible. Also, getting those bodies out of the way helps them channel the air through there, get some ventilation to those colonies. If you have a reducer on, get it out of the way. What are you giggling about over there? What? Have you ever tried K and F with bees like OHN, LAB, or FPJ? So I don't know what all of those acronyms mean, but probably not. I think you're talking about Olivarez, maybe in a couple other places. Anyways, a huge clover flow right now. We'll send some up this way. Chickens are pretty good about scratching around the hives and cleaning up, I think, some small hive beetles. I think it really helps. Yeah, I think Don, I'm getting a lot of reports about the small hive beetles going down. The last few seasons, I think, haven't been as bad as they were 5 or so years ago. The weather definitely impacts the small hive beetles. We haven't had a super cold winter, so it's not like the ground's freezing down there in Alabama. It definitely is not freezing up here in North Tennessee. There has to be something to do with the cool springs. We've definitely had cooler springs. This whole global warming thing's freezing my bees out. Oh yeah, I forgot. It's climate change, so now that they can cover everything, so that it's hard to be wrong when it's climate change. I need to have some type of model like that with our bees, to where no matter what anyone says, I can be right no matter what. You know what I've realized about science and beekeeping when it comes to weather, any type of science, the biggest problem I have with scientists and PhDs is the fact that they're humans. If it wasn't for the element in there, we'd probably have some really effective science going on. But there's just too many humans involved, and there's agendas and mistakes that are made. And I know that I make a lot of mistakes, and I'm trying to be as least biased towards my preferred methods of beekeeping as possible with this channel. Whew. Well, we have just hit the 3 hour point, but I think we're gonna cut it here at 3 hours. We're definitely not cutting it short. We went another 3 hours. Oh my goodness! Wow, Tim, that is. I don't know where that all came from, but that all sounds somewhat interesting. Fermented plant juice, lactic acid bacteria. Hmm, tasty. Hey, hi-fi, real quick. 70% is what is considered safe to pull on your capped frames. They might be ready before then, but if you don't have a refractometer, you don't know. Guys and gals, thanks so much for coming on. I hope I've been able to help a little bit. Thank you all for helping our channel in every way, whether it's watching our videos, liking our videos, going through our Audible link, Amazon links, donating, encouraging words. It all makes a difference and has helped us very much. And we will see you in tomorrow's video.